Chapter 341. Dongbo Shuiying flew along the main branch of the sky-reaching vine. The third vine leaf below him was also shrinking at an extremely slow speed. On the third vine leaf world, the figures of Persei, Meishan Master and Ken Huang, who were standing beside the two arenas, were also becoming smaller and smaller. It was difficult to see them with the naked eye. "Take care," Dongbo Shuiying said quietly. He then raised his head and looked up. Far above him there was another huge vine leaf world. That was the fourth vine leaf world. Now he was the only one going there. "I didn't expect that I would be at the forefront of this crimson rock mountain." Dongbo Shuiying shook his head and smiled. As he continued to fly. 1 day, 2 days, 3 days, as he got closer and closer, Dongbo Shuiying could feel the pressure in his heart. This was because the information regarding the fourth vine leaf world made him feel a lot of pressure. In terms of the possibility of death, the fourth vine leaf world was far more dangerous than the previous 3. "I have no way out. I have to win." As Dongbo Shuiying flew, he held the black wine gourd in his hand and drank a mouthful before putting it away. The bitter antidote spread throughout his body. He had long since gotten used to this bitterness and he even liked it. After flying alone on the main branch of the sky-reaching vine for more than 9 days, Dongbo Shuiying finally arrived at the fourth vine leaf world. The green-haired woman, Shi Wei, appeared from the main branch. "Young Transcendent, congratulations on being able to reach the fourth vine leaf world." Shi Wei looked at Dongbo Shuiying. "Among the Transcendents who entered Crimson Rock Mountain this time, your talent and potential are indeed the highest. I was originally worried that your strength would increase too slowly and it would be difficult for you to pass the third vine leaf world. However, I was worrying too much. Your speed of improvement is faster than I expected. Only those who can pass the fifth vine leaf world alive deserve to be congratulated," Dongbo Shuiying said. "It's good that you are so clear-headed." Shi Wei nodded. "According to the arrangements of the Sacred Lord, although the first and second vine leaves are somewhat dangerous, they are more for the sake of unearthing your potential. The difficulty of the third vine leaf was much higher, directly eliminating most of the Transcendents. Although the difficulty has greatly increased in the arena battles of the third vine leaf world, most people will hold back and very few will kill with one strike." Dongbo Shuiying nodded. The fact that Ken Huang and the other two were still alive proved that although the arena battles were difficult, the chances of them dying were very low. However, the last 2 vine leaves are different. They test your ability to fight to the death and many other aspects, Shi Wei said. "You can die at any time." "I understand." Dongbo Shuiying nodded. "Look over there." Shi Wei pointed at the gigantic vine leaf below. There was nothing else on this gigantic vine leaf except for a majestic building. The entire building was black and gold in color, and its lines were beautiful. That is the blood battle arena that is commonly seen in the immortal world. In the immortal world, many cultivators, for the sake of treasures and resources, do not hesitate to gamble their lives and enter the blood battle arena to fight. Shi Wei said. Many deities and even world deities participate in the blood battle arena. The moment one enters the blood battle arena, only one side can come out alive, while the other side will die inside. Because it is a true blood battle where one's life is on the line, the blood battle arena will give out extremely high rewards in the deity world, attracting many deities to participate. Even world deities will participate. World deities will participate, 2 world deities will engage in a blood battle and one will definitely die. This kind of battle will attract countless cultivators to watch. Shi Wei sighed. The blood battle arena is very common in the deity world. Dongbo Shuiying nodded. He had chatted with Persei many times, and knew that the deity world was also very strict and cruel. Even deities were reduced to slaves and sold. It was not strange for them to gamble their lives. It was just that it was too rare for powerful existences like world deities to gamble their lives. This is just an imitation of an ordinary blood battle arena. Shi Wei pointed at the huge blood battle arena structure. This time you will meet your opponents after you enter. After 1 time sand, another batch of opponents will join you. After another time sand, a 3rd batch of opponents will join you. Either all 3 batches of opponents die or you die. Do you understand the rules? Understood. Dongbo Shuiying nodded. He was alone while his opponents would be split into 3 batches. Thus, he had to try his best to get rid of 1 batch within 1 time sand. Only then would he have an easier time dealing with the 2nd batch. Otherwise, if all 3 batches joined hands, he would definitely die. Go. Shi Wei nodded. I wish you good luck. With that, Shi Wei's body entered the main branch of the sky-reaching vine. Dongbo Shuiying looked down at the blood battle arena structure. He immediately rushed down and landed on the surface of the huge vine leaf. I'm coming. Dongbo Shuiying walked towards the blood battle arena structure. This structure had an open passageway. This deep passageway led to the battlefield inside. Goo goo. Dongbo Shuiying picked up the black gourd and drank a mouthful of the antidote, allowing his condition to recover to its peak. Kill. Killing intent surged in Dongbo Shuiying's eyes. A fiery red spear appeared in his hands as he stepped into the deep passageway. Without any hesitation, he passed through the passageway and arrived at a huge blood-colored battle arena. The blood-colored battle arena was square in shape. It had a length and width of 10,000 li. Boundless baleful aura permeated the surroundings. It seemed as though many experts had died on this blood-colored battle arena. The baleful aura and resentment were terrifying. Hua! Suddenly, an invisible spatial barrier appeared around the blood-colored battle arena, isolating it from the outside world. Dongbo Shuiying glanced at the invisible spatial barrier. He understood that in the celestial world, this was also used to prevent the shockwaves of the battles on the blood battle arena from spreading to the spectator stands. Of course, there was another reason. It prevented the participants from escaping. Only one of them could leave this place alive. Once they entered, it would be too late for regrets. Dongbo Shuiying had heard from Persei that in the celestial world, there were some deity experts who decided to fight to the death for treasures they desired. However, after exchanging 1 or 2 blows with their opponents, they regretted their decision. Some even begged for mercy. Admit defeat. But it was useless. The loser had to die. Chi, an hourglass appeared in midair. Within the hourglass was the glowing sands of time. As the sands of time flowed downwards, roar, 9 figures had already appeared on the blood-colored battle platform. They were all mutated beasts with silvery white fur and 4 hooves. These mutated beasts all had a single golden horn and their eyes were also golden in color. There was a total of 9 of them and they stared at Dongbo Shuiying. When the sands of time started to flow, the battle had begun. Once the sands of time ran out, the second batch of opponents would appear. Damn it. Dongbo Shuiying frowned. Although he had obtained a lot of information, he was still unable to identify the origins of these 9 mutated beasts. Only by knowing oneself and knowing one's enemy would one be more confident. However, the 4th Vine Leaf world was like this. He only knew that he had to fight against 3 batches of opponents on the blood battle arena. Who were his opponents? He had no idea. I can't care anymore. Ho! Accompanied by their roars, the 9 mutated beasts instantly transformed into 9 rays of golden light and attacked Ting Qingshan simultaneously. Dongbo Shuiying wielded his fiery red spear. With a single step he disappeared. Within the mirage, Dongbo Shuiying saw the 9 mutated beasts turn their heads to look at him. Their gazes seemed to pass through the mirage. However, they seemed to be hesitating. Very good. It seems that when they enter the mirage, their strength will be affected. Dongbo Shuiying instantly approached a single-horned, golden-eyed beast in the mirage. The spear in his hand immediately struck out with a killing move. The unbelievably fast star meteor annihilation had already been executed. The shaft of the spear rotated, and the spearhead pierced towards the closest single-horned, golden-eyed beast with a terrifying penetrative force. The single-horned, golden-eyed beast quickly tried to dodge the attack. At the same time, it waved its claws in an attempt to block. Pooh! Dongbo Shuiying's spear was not that easy to block. It merely brushed against the claws, and the spear rotated and pierced through the chest of the single-horned, golden-eyed beast. Chapter 342. The tip of the spear pierced through its skin, into its muscles, and even deeper into its internal organs. The terrifying destructive laws of profound mystery spread outwards. That single-horned, golden-eyed beast opened its mouth wide. Despite being attacked, it still wanted to retaliate. However, its body immediately disintegrated and dissipated like gravel, turning into nothingness. A single-horned, golden-eyed beast had been killed. Roar! The other 8 single-horned, golden-eyed beasts were instantly affected. Not only were they not afraid, they all leaped into the mirage. Within the mirage, the 8 single-horned, golden-eyed beasts worked together, transforming into golden light as they flew towards Dongbo Shuiying. However, within the mirage their speed was clearly slower. Humph! Dongbo Shuiying wielded his spear and stood there without dodging. A ferocious gravitational force spread out in all directions, repelling the 8 single-horned, golden-eyed beasts. The speed of the single-horned, golden-eyed beasts decreased by a little. The main reason was that their bodies were not big enough and their mass was not high enough. A stage 3 true meaning of Star's gravity domain was not that effective. The 8 tentacled mirage creatures and patrolling mountain beasts that he had met previously belonged to the category of beasts with high mass. Dongbo Shuiying shifted his feet and instantly struck out with his spear. Roar, roar, these single-horned golden-eyed beasts attacked at the same time. Some were high, some were low, some were high, some were low, some were left and some were right. Dongbo Shuiying still did not have any hesitation. A terrifying spear had already pierced out, and its speed did not decrease at all. Bringing with it a scene of stars falling to the extreme, the revolving spear pierced into the body of a single-horned golden-eyed beast. That single-horned golden-eyed beast's body also started to disintegrate. Although their bodies were tough, they could not withstand Dongbo Shuiying's pure destructive secret skill. After piercing out with his spear, before he could even defend himself, the other 7 single-horned golden-eyed beasts had already unleashed their killing moves. Their sharp claws turned into golden light as they waved about, or they opened their bloody mouths to bite. Actually, in that kind of situation when surrounded by 8 beasts, most transcendents would choose to protect themselves first. They would not risk everything to kill one beast first, because if he insisted on killing one, he wouldn't have time to defend. Whoosh! The 7 single-horned golden-eyed beasts instantly surrounded him, and Dongbo Shuiying's figure disappeared. 100 meters away, Shuiying's figure appeared in another location. He was very close to a single-horned golden-eyed beast, and he did not hesitate to stab out with his spear. The sudden appearance of Shuiying and his sudden killing move caught that single-horned golden-eyed beast unprepared. The spear directly pierced through its mouth and through its brain. The terrifying laws of profound mystery spread throughout its entire body, causing it to disintegrate in an instant. Kill another one. Shwa, shwa, shwa. Dongbo Shuiying's silhouette flickered as he pleased. Numerous Dongbo Shuiying appeared around him, but they disappeared just as quickly. Pooh! A long spear directly pierced through the back of a single-horned golden-eyed beast. That single-horned golden-eyed beast tried its best to resist, but it was still too late. Roar, roar, the remaining single-horned golden-eyed beasts roared as they rushed out of the mirage without hesitation. Then they scattered and escaped in all directions. Escape? Escape if you can't win? Dongbo Shuiying's expression changed. He had to get rid of this first batch of opponents as soon as possible. Although this first batch seemed to be the weakest, each of them was stronger than General Kumeng and the rest. They probably had about 50 to 60% of the strength of the Lords of Ulan. After 18 years of cultivation, Dongbo Shuiying's spear techniques had completely matured. This was especially true for his secret technique. The current star meteor annihilation was even faster than extreme piercing. If he were to fight against the Lords of Ulan again, Yulan wouldn't be able to defend herself. These single-horned, golden-eyed beasts were still a threat when they joined forces. If I had known this would happen, I would have pretended to be weak. Now that I have frightened them, they are starting to scatter and escape. Dongbo Shuiying was somewhat vexed. Many thoughts flashed through his mind, but he did not stop fighting. He immediately entered the real world and released his gravity domain, doing his best to attract these single-horned, golden-eyed beasts towards him. At the same time, he used his speed to coordinate with his mirage doppelganger. In the blink of an eye, he caught up with the closest single-horned golden-eyed beast. Pu Qin, in an instant he killed this single-horned golden-eyed beast. Dongbo Shuiying immediately chased after another beast. However, the distance between them was clearly greater. If I continue to chase after them one by one, the distance between us will only increase. With a single thought from Dongbo Shuiying, a total of 36 white-robed Dongbo Shuiying appeared in all directions. Each of them wielded a long spear and chased after the beasts at high speed. A thick white fog even appeared around them, obscuring their vision. This caused the single-horned, golden-eyed beasts to be unable to discover their comrades. Roar, the single-horned, golden-eyed beasts seemed to be frightened by each of the Dongbo Shuiying, as they tried their best to dodge. It was hard for them to discern which one was real and which one was fake. However, what gave Dongbo Shuiying a headache was the fact that his fantasy domain was useless. These single-horned, golden-eyed beasts could still rely on their own laws of profound mysteries to sense each other. Moreover, they were just life forms condensed from spirit arrays and were not real life forms. His true meaning of mirage was unable to drag their consciousness into his fantasy domain. Dongbo Shuiying used his mirage doppelgangers to confuse the beasts while his main body stealthily transformed into nothingness within the mirage and advanced. He advanced in a state of nothingness without making any sound. His body was one with the mirage, and these single-horned golden-eyed beasts could not detect him at all. However, they were still very intelligent. They were scattered all over the blood battle platform, maintaining the furthest distance from each other. This caused Dongbo Shuiying to rush about everywhere. Who? Dongbo Shuiying finally stabbed the last single-horned golden-eyed beast to death on the blood-colored battle platform. The beast's head was pierced through, and it was fixed on the blood-colored battle platform. Its four limbs struggled for a while, but soon after, it completely disintegrated into nothingness. Fortunately, my body transformed into nothingness and became one with the mirage. That way it would be hard to detect me. Dongbo Shuiying heaved a sigh of relief. That was why these single-horned golden-eyed beasts could not detect me. At least I managed to finish them off in a short period of time. As expected of an assassin. When one was stealthily hiding, it was very hard to detect them. Now that he was able to become one with the mirage, even the Meishan master could not detect him. Of course, this kind of concealment was still not strong enough. If the Meishan master had grasped the spatial deity heart, he would still be able to detect him. Of course, if Dongbo Shuiying reached the mirage deity heart stage, it would be a whole new world. Such was the state of the realm. There was no such thing as invincibility. The only thing that mattered was who was stronger. Dongbo Shuiying raised his head and looked at the hourglass in the air. The sand of time within the hourglass had almost completely flowed out. He had already thought of all possible methods. Even with the help of the mirage concealment technique, he was barely able to finish them off in a short period of time. And this was only the first batch of opponents that were the easiest to deal with. There were still 2 more batches of opponents that were getting stronger and stronger. Here it comes. The hourglass in the air finally ran out of sand. Then it turned around and the sand within the hourglass continued to flow. 6 figures began to condense on the blood-colored battle platform. They were 6 humanoid existences that seemed to be condensed from water. Very quickly they solidified. Their entire bodies were covered in deep blue armor, and they wore masks on their faces. Each of them carried a different weapon. At the same time they emitted intense, surging water ripples. The ripples were vast and mighty, spreading throughout the entire blood-colored battle platform. Dongbo Shuiying's expression changed slightly. The aura of these 6 deep blue humanoids seemed to be stronger than Yulan and Kenhuang. Shua. The 6 deep blue humanoids instantly turned into 6 streams of water. Their speed was even faster than Dongbo Shuiying's, and they surrounded him. Hua. Dongbo Shuiying's figure flashed, and he entered the mirage. The 6 streams of water also entered the mirage, and their speed within the mirage did not decrease at all. This caused Dongbo Shuiying's heart to sink. Not good. The mirage does not obstruct them and it does not affect their strength at all. This is troublesome. Apart from that, what made Dongbo Shuiying feel even more pressured was that although the intelligence report had recorded many opponents on the blood-colored battle platform, the deep blue humanoids in front of him were not included in the report. As for their battle techniques, Dongbo Shuiying had no idea how to deal with them. He could only vaguely guess from their flying technique that it was probably related to the laws of water. Dongbo Shuiying held a long spear in his hand and did not evade. Instead, he faced the 6 deep blue humanoids head-on. The second batch of opponents is already so powerful. The third batch will definitely be even more difficult to deal with. I have to finish them off within the time it takes. I have to pretend to be weak and let them approach me. Only then will I be able to kill them faster. However, I am not sure about their techniques. I have to be careful and not fall into the hands of these deep blue humanoids. Boom. When they were still tens of li away, the 6 deep blue humanoids who were still in the form of water suddenly made their move. A long arm extended out of the water, and the arm grew to tens of li long. It was wielding a huge weapon and it shot towards Dongbo Shuiying. Chapter 343. Within the Mirage Realm. Dongbo Shuiying wielded his spear with great difficulty, barely defending against the indigo humanoid's attacks. Sometimes he was even forced to use his Mirage doppelganger to evade the killing blow. This transcendent strength isn't that high. It's just that his Mirage technique is more troublesome. He's able to change his body's position. Everyone attack him from a close distance. Even if he uses his Mirage doppelganger to appear, we can still kill him. Although these indigo humanoids were lifeforms condensed from arrays, they still possessed some basic intelligence. They rapidly charged forward, their attacks becoming sharper and more ferocious. Shuiying was clearly having a harder time. He was constantly changing his figure. His body kept changing positions and he did his best to dodge. A large number of Mirage doppelgangers appeared around him. Relying on these doppelgangers to confuse him, Dongbo Shuiying found it difficult to defend against every clash between their weapons. After exchanging tens of blows, Dongbo Shuiying was only able to barely, and luckily, use his Mirage doppelganger to change his position. His spear finally pierced the body of an indigo humanoid. That indigo humanoid revealed an expression of shock and anger, following which its body started to disintegrate. Under the star meteor annihilation, its body could no longer withstand it. Be careful. Although his spear technique strength is only on par with ours, the laws of profound mysteries are extremely destructive. Once we get hit, we'll die. Yes, be careful. This transcendent strength isn't that high. It's only because he can use his true meaning of Mirage to change his position that he's so hard to deal with. As long as we find an opportunity, as long as you hit where his true body is, he will be defeated and killed. Amen. Seize the opportunity and kill him in one fell swoop. These indigo humanoids discussed amongst themselves. Their desire to kill Dongbo Shuiying grew even more intense. Occasionally their attacks would sweep across the battlefield, hoping to coincidentally hit Dongbo Shuiying's Mirage doppelganger. The second indigo humanoid was hit as well. Once again its body disintegrated. Cooperate well. Every time he repels our weapons, he'll immediately change his Mirage doppelganger's position. Repelling our weapons gives him enough time to teleport. We need to cooperate well. The remaining indigo humanoids were still filled with hope for victory. But for some reason, Dongbo Shuiying seemed to be very lucky. He was always able to block the attacks by a hair's breadth. When the third indigo was hit, the remaining three finally realized that something was wrong. Although Dongbo Shuiying had killed 3 indigo tribe members, and although he purposely did not kill them too quickly, battles of their level were still extremely fast. Even though Dongbo Shuiying had purposely slowed down, he still managed to kill 3 indigo tribe members within 2 breaths. 3 of their companions died one after another, causing the remaining 3 to finally be on guard. This was because they realized that even if the 3 of them were to team up against Dongbo Shuiying, they would not be able to pose much of a threat to him. Secondly, he did not seem to be that strong, so how did he manage to kill 3 of them in such a short period of time? No matter how good his luck was, it couldn't be this ridiculous. This transcendent is hiding his strength. Run. Quick, scatter and escape. Join up with the next batch and kill this transcendent. These 3 indigo tribe members were not real life forms, so they already had some basic rules of conduct. If they were confident, they would kill the transcendent tribe member. If not, they would split up and try their best to preserve their lives. Then they would join up with the next batch and kill the transcendent tribe member. Should we run now? Dongbo Shuiying's eyes flashed coldly. The moment the indigo tribe member tried to escape, Dongbo Shuiying immediately increased his speed and pounced towards the indigo tribe member. With the obstruction of the gravitational territory and the mirage, Dongbo Shuiying instantly caught up to the indigo tribe member. His spear spun and stabbed out, and the scene of star meteor annihilation appeared. However, this time the speed of the spear was much faster than before. The speed of the spear was so fast that the indigo tribe member could not even block it with his halberd. The spear had already pierced through the indigo tribe member's body. Another indigo tribe member was killed. This is the true speed of star meteor annihilation. I was just playing with you guys. Dongbo Shuiying's eyes were filled with killing intent. He immediately pounced towards another indigo tribe member. However, the other 2 indigo tribe members had already left the mirage and started to escape in different directions. Do you think you can escape? Dongbo Shuiying immediately dispersed his body and merged with the mirage. Following which, he moved forward in his illusory state and silently approached one of the indigo tribe members. Although the indigo tribe member was escaping in a panic, it did not know where Dongbo Shuiying was. Although it was smart enough to run in a straight line, the blood-colored battle platform was only so big. It had to fly in another direction. Not long after, it bumped into Dongbo Shuiying. Puff! Another sudden and fatal spear strike. The last 2 indigo tribe members that escaped were easily dealt with separately. Dongbo Shuiying walked out of the mirage and looked at the hourglass in the sky above the blood-colored battle platform. There was still a small amount of sand left in the hourglass. He could not help but smile. Pretending to be weak is indeed much easier. Previously, when he killed the weaker 9-headed single-horned golden-eyed beast, he barely managed to kill it within the range of Time's sand. This time he had to deal with 6 stronger indigo tribe members. By pretending to be weak, he managed to kill 4 of them. In the end, only 2 of them managed to escape in different directions. He had more than enough time. Pretending to be weak was very simple. He just had to slow down the speed of his star meteor annihilation. It was even slower than extreme piercing. This way the threat would be greatly reduced. Most Indigo tribe members would be able to handle it. They would only succeed once in a while by relying on the Mirage doppelgangers to change their positions. The Indigo tribe members only felt that something was amiss when 3 of them died. How could there be such a coincidence? Their strength was so close to theirs. How could they have unknowingly killed half of them? They're still the last batch. Dongbo Shuiying stood on the blood-colored battle platform and waited silently. Finally, in mid-air, the sand in the hourglass had all flowed and started to flow again. 3 figures began to condense on the ice-cold blood-colored battle platform. The 3 of them were all very skinny and lean in human form. They were about 1.5 meters tall and had rather long arms. They had a pair of eye-catching sharp claws. Their skin was dark green and their waists were wrapped with rags. Dongbo Shuiying's heart sank. His expression changed. Hunters. Dongbo Shuiying's heart was filled with anxiety and anger. This was the first time he received information about his opponents after entering the blood-colored battle platform. The previous 2 batches of opponents were not recorded in his intelligence reports. But this time, the skinny figures that appeared were recorded in his intelligence reports. They were known as hunters. How could they be hunters? Why not Howling War General? Why not Thunder Emissary? Countless thoughts flashed through Dongbo Shuiying's mind. What should I do? How should I deal with them? Hunters. They were opponents that Dongbo Shuiying did not wish to meet. After all, they specialized in restraining Dongbo Shuiying. Hunters were similarly life forms condensed from arrays. However, their combat techniques were higher and they had grasped hold of the Grade 2 deity heart, the Minute deity heart. The true meaning of Minute was a grade higher than the Grade 3 true meaning, the true meaning of particles. As a Grade 2 true meaning, even if it was restrained, it would not be a threat to Dongbo Shuiying if it was only at the peak of the Stage 3 realm. After all, Dongbo Shuiying had 3 true meanings and secret skills. But the moment he broke through, his true meaning of Minute would reach the deity heart realm. Ordinary armors, deity weapons, and material defenses like battle chi would be completely ineffective against the attacks of the Minute deity heart. Even though Dongbo Shuiying had grasped hold of the Nihility body, and his defensive capabilities had greatly increased, strictly speaking in terms of offense, movement, and defense, his defense was still the weakest. Because he had secret skills for offense. In terms of movement, he could easily change his position. Only his physical body was relatively weaker. Even though Dongbo Shuiying knew it would be troublesome, he had no other way out. Once he entered the blood-colored battle platform, either he or his opponent would die. There was no other possibility. Fortunately, I've grasped hold of the Nihility body, allowing me to take a gamble. Otherwise, I would have died in a single exchange. Dongbo Shuiying thought. Actually, if he did not have the Mirage technique, he would not even be able to deal with that fat hunk from the Black Iron Cannon army in the 3rd Vine Leaf world. Clearly, being able to reach this stage, Dongbo Shuiying's combat power was still sufficient for him to fight. 3 of them. Dongbo Shuiying's thoughts raced. It would be very taxing for him to fight one-on-one. 1 against 3? The 3 skinny hunters looked at each other with their dark yellow eyes. Following which, their figures blurred, turning into 3 streaks as they rapidly approached each other. Chapter 344. Dongbo Shuiying did not enter the Mirage. This was because he was very clear that the hunters who had grasped the complete Lepton deity heart could easily traverse between the real world and the Mirage. The Mirage would not be able to restrict them at all. Moreover, in terms of speed, the hunters had reached a speed of 1,600 kilometers per second, which was completely above his. Boom. The surrounding space seemed to be distorted by a formless gravitational force, crazily repelling the 3 hunters. The figures of the hunters had all turned illusory like ghosts. Their movements were also very soft. Suddenly, one of the skinny hunters waved its sharp claws. It seemed to be very gentle and casual, but the space around it did not calm down, nor did it create any ripples. The Lepton deity heart is indeed worthy of being called thoroughly meticulous. Dongbo Shuiying held a fiery red spear in his hand. When the 3 hunters approached, he suddenly moved at high speed and took the initiative to welcome one of them. Without hesitation, he stabbed out with his spear. Without a doubt, his spear art, Star Meteor Annihilation, was purely offensive and destructive. He was not afraid. Pooh. The hunter that was attacked immediately waved its 2 sharp claws to block. When it first received the attack, it was also affected by the whirlpool-like gravitational force. However, the movements of its claws were very meticulous and simple. With a slight adjustment, when the whirlpool-like gravitational force turned into a repulsive force, its claws also changed again. Everything seemed so gentle and delicate. This spear attack, other than the strange rotation of the spear art itself, was mainly focused on speed. Super fast speed. Dongbui Shui Ying's movement technique might not be as fast as them, but the speed of his spear art was even faster than the speed of his opponent's claws. Clang. The pair of sharp claws still closed, blocking this spear attack. The hunters seemed to have an indescribable sense of beauty when they fought. Every move of theirs was calculated to the extreme. Even if their movements were slowed down by 100,000 times or 1,000,000 times, it would still be very difficult to find any flaws. Moreover, the energy of heaven and earth was also being used by them in an incomparably exquisite manner. This level of control was shocking. This was the true meaning of Lepton. Moreover, it had reached the deity heart stage. The spear and the sharp claws clashed. The sharp claws contained an extremely restrained power that was rapidly permeating through. All material defenses were useless against this power. However, the profound mysteries of the laws of destruction contained within the spear were also being transmitted. This was a secret skill created by the fusion of the true meaning of star and extreme piercing. Its destructive power was above that of extreme piercing. After 18 years of perfecting it, it was almost comparable to the extreme piercing deity heart. In terms of attack and destruction, he naturally surpassed his opponent. The laws of profound mysteries of both sides collided. The power contained in the sharp claws was instantly destroyed. The hunter's body shook slightly, and the impact was neutralized. At this time, the other two hunters were already approaching. Appear. With a thought from Dongbui Shui Ying, 36 Yongs of Dongbui Shui Ying appeared in the surroundings, and Dongbui Shui Ying himself disappeared. Mirage Doppelganger? The three hunters simultaneously released their fluctuations. The fluctuations of the true meaning of Lepton completely enveloped the entire blood-colored battle platform. The entire space was filled with formless attacks. Although it was just a simple fluctuation of the laws of profound mysteries, it wasn't something that Dongbui Shui Ying's Mirage Doppelgangers could defend against. One after another, the Mirage Doppelgangers started to dissipate. Ever since Dongbui Shui Ying reached the Stage 3 realm, it was very difficult for his Mirage Doppelgangers to be dealt with on a large scale. However, the hunters managed to do it. Firstly, it was because they had reached the Grade 2 Deity Heart stage. Secondly, it was because of the uniqueness of the true meaning of Lepton. Only one of Dongbui Shui Ying's doppelgangers didn't dissipate. That was Dongbui Shui Ying himself. He stabbed out with his spear abruptly towards the attacking hunter. Under the sudden attack, the hunter hurriedly turned around and defended with all his might. Finally, one of his sharp claws blocked Dongbui Shui Ying's spear. Kill. The other two hunters immediately attacked. Shua. Dongbui Shui Ying immediately dissipated and merged with the entire mirage. Previously, the three hunters were still some distance away from each other, so he could seize the opportunity to attack. However, they were now standing together. Given the speed of the deity heart of Lepton, if his attack failed and he didn't escape, he would be easily killed under their combined attacks. Merged with the mirage? The three hunters' dark yellow eyes stared at the mirage. The complete deity heart of Lepton allowed them to easily see through the entire mirage. They could even see Dongbui Shui Ying, who had merged with the mirage. A Stage 3 concealment technique couldn't avoid the detection of the Space Deity Heart or the Lepton Deity Heart. If it was the Star Deity Heart, he might be able to hide. After all, the Space Deity Heart and the Lepton Deity Heart were both good at scouting. He actually merged with every single mirage within the blood-colored battle platform? The three hunters exchanged glances. Attacking him is equivalent to attacking the entire mirage within a 5,000-kilometer radius? In reality, Dongbui Shui Ying could merge with the mirage within a 5,000-kilometer radius. Unfortunately, the blood-colored battle platform was only so big. Attack. In an instant, the three hunters no longer hesitated and attacked. If they didn't attack, they had no other choice. Boom, 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 the frenzied attacks hit the mirage one after another. It really hurts. Dongbui Shui Ying's body turned illusory and merged with the mirage within the blood-colored battle platform. Naturally, it enveloped the three hunters as well. He could feel their attacks penetrating and destroying his defenses. This was already his most heaven-defying defense. With the help of the 10,000-kilometer mirage, he was completely dispersed. However, after one round of attacks, his life force was depleted by 1/10,000th. One had to know that their attack speed was extremely fast. If they continued to attack, it wouldn't be long before they could attack 10,000 times. Swish. Next to one of the hunters, Shui Ying appeared out of thin air. Very abruptly he stabbed out with his spear. Clang. It was blocked. Before the three hunters could attack, Dongbo Shui Ying immediately disappeared and merged with the mirage once again. In the sky above the blood-colored battle platform, the green-haired Shi Wei and a white-haired elder with a youthful face were looking down at the blood-colored battle platform. With their strength they could naturally see everything clearly. This kid isn't a crazy person. Even at the brink of death, he is still extremely calm. The white-haired elder looked down and smiled. Right now, his life force is being depleted continuously. Most cultivators would go crazy under the pressure of death. They might even fight hysterically. When one's life force explodes, they might win by luck. But luck can't be used 3 times. Only true strength can be relied on. He would rather endure the depletion of his life force and find an opportunity to launch a sneak attack. His judgment was accurate. Dongbo Shui Ying indeed had such a personality. He didn't like to force himself at the brink of death. Previously, when he was surrounded by more than 108 clawed mirage creatures, he was lucky enough to have a breakthrough in his true meaning of star, which greatly increased the power of his secret skill. But deep in his heart, Dongbo Shui Ying didn't like such breakthroughs. He had watched the creation of heaven and earth and he had accumulated insights. In addition, he was at the limit of a bottleneck, and it was just a small bottleneck, not a big one like the deity heart. Under the pressure of life and death, there was indeed a higher chance of breaking through. But no matter what, Dongbo Shui Ying didn't like being forced into such a situation. He preferred to cultivate normally. He wanted to accumulate strength and make breakthroughs naturally. Shi Wei nodded. Forefather is right. Even someone as arrogant as she was very respectful in front of this elder. Although no one in Crimson Rock Mountain could leave, they were still very respectful to this forefather. Forefather, do you think this young transcendent can win? Shi Wei asked. His life force has already been depleted by more than 30%. Soon it will be reduced to half. The attacks of the hunters were very crazy and fast. Little kid Shi Wei, do you feel it? The white-haired, youthful-faced elder looked downwards. This kid's consciousness is still incomparably calm, looking for any opportunity. He's really a good seedling. I can see that he's still very young. He has only cultivated for about 200 years, but he already has such strength and determination. Truly amazing. Do you think he can win? I feel that. Before he could finish his words, on the blood battle platform, Dongbo Shui Ying launched another sneak attack. It was an extremely sudden sneak attack from the back. The ambushed hunter, who was previously attacking the mirage with all his might, couldn't help but do his best to defend. But Dongbo Shui Ying's spear art was too fast. This time it was just a little bit off, the boundary between life and death. The spear pierced through the thin and small body. Under the terrifying attack of the laws of profound mysteries, the body immediately started to disintegrate. Dongbo Shui Ying revealed an excited expression. His face was sickly pale, and his life force had already been depleted by more than half. He had finally succeeded. He felt that if his spear art was fast enough, coupled with the Mirage Doppelganger's sudden attacks, he should be able to succeed. Time and time again he had pursued faster spear arts, more sudden attacks and better opportunities. He had seized the moment when they were attacking the Mirage to launch a sneak attack. He had failed time and time again, but he had finally succeeded. I succeeded once. The white-haired, youthful-faced elder revealed a smile. The next step will be much simpler. The threat of the 2 hunters' joint attacks was greatly reduced. Every time Dongbo Shui Ying launched a sneak attack, he would have to attack several times before retreating into the mirage. After consuming another 10% of his life force, Dongbo Shui Ying killed another hunter. Only one was left? Dongbo Shui Ying didn't need to run anymore. He could fight one-on-one. Forefather, do you think he can pass the 5th Vine Leaf world? Shi Wei asked. No one can predict the future, the white-haired, youthful-faced elder said calmly, his voice carrying a hint of disappointment. Shi Wei nodded silently. That's right. Before the Sacred Master died, who would have thought that a powerful existence like the Sacred Master would die? The past was fixed, but the future had countless possibilities. Pooh. Dongbo Shui Ying's long spear pierced the ribs of the last hunter. The hunter's dark yellow eyes widened, staring at Dongbo Shui Ying unwillingly. Then it collapsed and dissipated. I won, I won. I finally won. I knew I would win, I definitely will. Dongbo Shui Ying stood on the blood-colored battle platform, holding his long spear and roaring excitedly. His eyes were filled with madness. Just now, his life force was continuously being consumed, and he felt like he was nearing death. He was under a lot of pressure, but he tried his best to stay calm. He believed that his strategy was correct. This was also the only way he had a higher chance of winning. All he could do was to find a better opportunity to attack, and to strike faster and more perfectly. In the end he succeeded. He passed the fourth vine leaf world. Shi Wei and the white-haired youthful-faced elder looked down at the white-clothed young man who was shouting excitedly. They couldn't help but smile. He's still a kid after all. He's too young. The white-haired youthful-faced elder laughed. He then turned around and took a step forward, breaking through the air and leaving. Chapter 345. Dongbo Shuiying raised his head and looked around. He took a deep breath. The murderous aura and resentment that permeated the blood-colored battle platform made him feel extremely happy. After the battle, his mood relaxed and endless fatigue surged in his heart. This feeling of relaxation and exhaustion caused Shuiying to involuntarily reveal a grin. He knelt down and caressed the ice-cold blood-colored battle platform. Feeling the cold touch, he muttered, "I've won. So what if it's the blood battle platform? I've still won. I've already passed through the fourth vine leaf world. Now all that's left is the fifth vine leaf world. Jingqiu, wait for me." He then stood up and touched the stellar fire cloud spear in his hand. It was this spear that had accompanied him all the way until now. "Let's continue. We'll keep going." Dongbo Shuiying smiled and walked out of the blood-colored battle platform. The space barrier around the platform had disappeared. Following the entrance, he quickly walked out of the blood-colored battle platform. Whoosh. After exiting the blood-colored battle platform, Dongbo Shuiying immediately soared into the sky and continued to fly along the main branch of the sky-reaching vine. He was surrounded by an endless starry sky, and there were countless stars in the distance. It was completely silent. Dongbo Shuiying looked at this lonely scene and smiled as he flew. As the pain from the voodoo poison became more intense, Dongbo Shuiying took out the black gourd and drank a mouthful of the antidote. 8 long days passed as he flew. Dongbo Shuiying flew to almost the top of this space. He looked up and saw an invisible space membrane. Clearly, above him, was another space. The main branch of the sky-reaching vine continued to extend into the space membrane until it reached a higher space. As long as I can pass through the fifth vine leaf world, I'll be able to enter the higher space along the sky-reaching vine and become an honorary disciple of Crimson Rock Mountain. I'll be able to obtain many treasures that even the great world deities would covet. Dongbo Shuiying was looking forward to that day. Of course, there's only one obstacle left. Dongbo Shuiying's gaze landed on a huge vine leaf. This was the fifth vine leaf. There was nothing on the vine leaf except for the leaf itself. The transcendence of the Xia people. Next to Dongbo Shuiying, the green-haired woman, Shi Wei, appeared on the main branch of the sky-reaching vine. She looked at Dongbo Shuiying with a hint of anticipation in her eyes. "Congratulations on reaching the fifth vine leaf. The fifth vine leaf seems to be the easiest out of all the leaves, but it also seems to be the most difficult one. It varies from person to person." Dongbo Shuiying nodded. "As long as you land on the fifth vine leaf and your body touches the fifth vine leaf, you won't be able to hear, see, or even feel anything. What you have to do is to live on the fifth vine leaf for 3 years. If you survive, you'll have won, and you'll become an honorary disciple of my Crimson Rock Mountain. If you can't, your soul consciousness will collapse and you'll die." Shi Wei looked at him. "Do you understand?" "Yes." Shuiying nodded. He had the intelligence reports from the Xia clan and Qinjiu, so he was naturally clear about the fifth vine leaf world situation. This was the only vine leaf world that did not require any battles. It might seem simple, but in reality, according to the intelligence reports, it was considered to be extremely difficult. Back in the deity world, there were quite a few transcendents overflowing with talent who were stopped at the fifth vine leaf world, their souls and consciousnesses crumbling and dying. Go. Shi Wei's eyes were filled with anticipation. It had been a long time since a protector disciple had been born after her master's death. Dongbo Shuiying took out the black gourd and drank a mouthful of the 100 bitter restoration antidote. Then without hesitation he dived towards the fifth vine leaf world. Shi Wei was also looking down at them. She softly whispered, "Among the few of them, Dongbo Shuiying is the one with the highest innate talent and potential. But compared to the other 3, Dongbo Shuiying is still too young. I don't know if he can pass the fifth vine leaf world. I hope this genius transcendent doesn't die here." She wanted to help, but she didn't have the authority. Everything was decided by the sacred leader. She had to follow the rules. The test of the fifth vine leaf world. Back then, the sacred leader had taken into consideration the transcendents who came to challenge it. Most of them had reached the limit of demigods and had cultivated for at least 2,000 years. Only those who had reached a point where they couldn't improve any further would come. Therefore, the test was naturally difficult. The first 4 were fine, but the 5th one tests one's heart. Shi Wei was worried. Dongbo Shui Ying's heart is very strong, but that's only when compared to the majority of mediocre transcendents. Compared to transcendents like the Meishan Master, Ken Huang and Percy I, I'm afraid he won't have much of an advantage. Cultivating one's heart required time. For example, the gods who had lived for millions of years, all of them had incomparably strong hearts. Because their hearts were weak, they wouldn't be able to live for that long. As time passed, they would feel older and older, more and more tired and more bored. They might even start to doubt their own path of cultivation, and eventually, their true deity heart would collapse and they would die. Therefore, the longer one could live, regardless of whether they were righteous or evil, they would all have their own beliefs. And Dongbo Shuiying had only lived for 200 years. Dongbo Shuiying swooped down, and only slowed down when he neared the giant vine leaf. Then, his feet slowly landed on the ground. The moment his feet touched the vine leaf, everything was pitch black. Complete silence. My eyes can't see, my ears can't hear, and I can't sense any laws of profound mysteries. Dongbo Shuiying felt incomparably lonely. He couldn't feel anything except his own heartbeat and the flow of blood in his body. Of course, there was also the pain from the voodoo poison that was slowly increasing. It was as if he was the only one left in the world and nothing else. Dongbo Shuiying sat down cross-legged and silently sat. He was used to this absolute loneliness. Gradually, time seemed to slow down. Fortunately, he could tell time from his heartbeat and the pain from the voodoo poison. Otherwise, he wouldn't be able to tell how much time had passed. Dongbo Shuiying's heart was indeed very strong. Since he was 8 years old, he had been training his spear like a madman. He was used to being alone since he was young, and when he was 22, he lived alone in the Black Wind Deity Palace at the bottom of the Black Wind Abyss for a whole 6 years. After that, the 6 ghosts' grudge voodoo poison tortured him for 100 years. Before that, Dongbo Shuiying would drag it out until the very last moment before he consumed the antidote. He had to fight against himself every single day. He had to endure to his limits every single time. Under this kind of torture, Dongbo Shuiying's willpower had become terrifyingly strong. Although he couldn't feel anything from the outside, ordinary mortals would probably collapse and go crazy within the time it took to brew a cup of tea. Even ordinary transcendents would find it hard to endure for a month. This was much harder to endure than simple torture. In this absolute loneliness, even his thoughts would become very slow, as though the entire world had turned into nothingness. Dongbo Shuiying sat cross-legged in the 5th vine leaf world. According to the pain caused by the voodoo poison, every time he reached his limit, he would consume the antidote. After a year he was very calm. This calmness caused Shi Wei, who was watching in the dark, to exclaim, "This young transcendent has only cultivated for 200 years. How can his heart be so calm? Even if the 6 ghosts' grudge voodoo poison can also train one's willpower, how can he endure a year of absolute loneliness like this?" From below the main branch of the sky-reaching vine, a figure flew up. It was the Meishan Master. The Meishan Master flew up high and saw Dongbo Shuiying, who was already sitting cross-legged in the 5th vine leaf world. He couldn't help but reveal an expression of surprise. "Dongbo Shuiying came here a year earlier than me. After a year of closed-door training in the 5th vine leaf world, his expression is still very calm. That's really impressive." Usually, as one's heart fluctuated, their expression would change as well. Dongbo Shuiying's expression was calm. Evidently, the 1 year of closed-door training had little effect on him. "Congratulations." The green-haired Shi Wei looked at the Meishan Master calmly. "This is the final 5th vine leaf." Chapter 346. The green-haired woman Shi Wei also had a preference. Although this Meishan Master had also successfully arrived at the 5th vine leaf world, and because he had cultivated for a long time, his chances of passing the death trial were relatively high. However, Shi Wei was more inclined towards Dongbo Shuiying. After all, his innate talent and potential were higher. As for Meishan Master, if this was the era when the Divine Lord was still alive, he would only be an ordinary guardian disciple. However, Dongbo Shuiying was qualified to be groomed. She briefly explained the rules to Meishan Master, and Meishan Master swooped down toward the 5th vine leaf. He also landed and sat down cross-legged. Time passed day by day. Under the absolute loneliness, Dongbo Shuiying could not help but gradually become irritated. Although he could tell that only 2 years had passed from the voodoo pain in his heartbeat, under the absolute loneliness, he felt more unbearable than the 100 years he had been tortured by the voodoo. Although he had been tortured by the voodoo before, at least he could see the sun, feel the breeze, see the night sky, eat steaming buns and travel with Jing. But now there was only nothingness. Soon 2.5 years have passed. It's very close to 3 years. Dongbo Shuiying thought silently. However, he could no longer maintain his calm expression. Sometimes his brows furrowed, and sometimes he looked slightly ferocious. The test of the 5th vine leaf world is also called the death trial. Especially the instant when the 3 years are up. If you survive that instant, you'll live. If you don't, you'll die. Dongbo Shuiying thought to himself. Wei watched from afar. She was also calculating the time. 3 years is almost up. Don't fail at the final instant. On the gigantic 5th vine leaf, Dongbo Shuiying's expression was ferocious and furious. It was obvious that he was about to go crazy, but he forced himself not to recklessly attack his surroundings. Buzz. Suddenly, a wave of energy descended. Dongbo Shuiying's expression suddenly became incomparably calm. It's here. Wei stared. Bzz. A ripple enveloped his spiritual consciousness. Dongbo Shuiying instantly understood. Is this the final moment? You must make it through. His soul consciousness was dragged into an illusory world. This illusory world was known as the momentary world, in the intelligence reports. A long period of time might pass in this illusory world, but only an instant would pass in the outside world. In the illusory world, one's memories would be clouded, and one would not know one's original identity or strength. He had forgotten everything. Without his memories, it was as if he had started a new life. In this world, from birth to death, if one did not struggle out of this momentary world, then one's soul would also dissipate in this illusory world. Therefore, in addition to the 3 years of death seclusion, there was also the final death seclusion, momentary world. After 3 years of absolute solitude, even if some peerless transcendence could withstand it, their minds would be affected. In such a state, their soul consciousness would be dragged into an illusory world, and it would not be easy for them to awaken before they died of old age. This world had a high and mighty emperor as well as rich and noble families and countless cities. Dongbo Shuiying was an orphan in a poor mountain village. He usually went into the mountains to chop firewood and hunt for food. Help! Help! A woman was crying in the mountains. Dongbo Shuiying, who was wearing a beast hide, was carrying a pheasant and a hare. His ears twitched as he immediately rushed over. At the same time he shouted, "Xiaobai, follow me." Beside him was a snow-white hunting dog. A man and a dog nimbly traversed the mountains. Soon they saw a woman in the weeds. Her legs were broken and her clothes were in tatters. "Save me! Save me!" The woman immediately shouted when she saw someone. Dongbo Shuiying looked at the woman in a daze. When he saw the fair skin that was revealed from her torn clothes, he was somewhat stunned. He had lived in this poor mountain village since he was young. The most beautiful woman was the area at the village entrance, but compared to the woman in front of him, there was simply no comparison. Her skin was as delicate as white jade. She was simply like a fairy from the heavens. "What are you looking at?" the woman said shyly. She also noticed that there were too many tatters on her clothes. Oh. Dongbo Shuiying hastily went over to help. "Ah. Your legs are broken. I can't move. Carry me. Don't worry. I will definitely thank you. I will build a big house for you and let you find a beautiful woman." Okay. The simple and honest Dongbo Shuiying was a little shy and excited, but he still carried the woman on his back. "What's your name?" "I'm Snow Eagle." "Your surname is Snow? That's a rare surname." "I don't know. I'm an orphan. Everyone in the village calls me Snow Eagle, so I'm called Snow Eagle." "Right. How do I get out of the mountain from here?" "I fell from a cliff." "Wow, a cliff? That's more than 10 miles high. How did you survive?" "I have a talisman. You don't understand. Anyway, I survived." "How do I get out of the mountain and into the city?" "That's troublesome. The mountain is very big and there are no roads. We have to go through many mountains. There are also tigers, leopards, jackals, and wolves in the mountains. Just tell me how to get out of the mountain. Don't talk so much." "I've never been out of the mountain. I don't know." "You've never been out? You've never been out in your life?" "Yes. But I want to go home." "I'll ask the village chief. Don't worry, I'll help you." "Alright, what's your name?" Just call me Fairy. Fairy? Snow Eagle took care of the woman. When her legs were healed, he took the map from the village chief and started to lead her out. Snow Eagle, it's very difficult to get out of the mountain. You better not go out. Go back and find a woman and have a baby in the village. If you go out, even if you are the best hunter in the village, you might die on the way. Thank you, village chief. I still want to go out and take a look. Snow Eagle led the woman called Fairy out of the village. The woman actually knew some sword skills, but compared to the hunter in the village, Snow Eagle's knife skills, she was still far behind. Snow Eagle led her through many dangers and killed many wild beasts in the mountain forest. During this time, Snow Eagle was poisoned and injured, but he survived. During these days, the two cuddled together and gradually developed feelings for each other. Snow Eagle also learned that Fairy's real name was Su Ling. After more than 3 months of arduous trekking, they finally made it out of the mountain alive. They arrived at a majestic city and entered a luxurious mansion, Su Mansion. That was Fairy's home. Little sister Ling. The Su family was very happy, but soon they became angry. What? A poor mountain boy? You want to marry him? Are you crazy? I want to marry him. Your mother and I have already decided on your marriage. Guards, catch that poor boy. Snow Eagle resisted with a hatchet, but he was defeated by a guard in one move. He was directly caught and thrown into the dungeon. No matter how much the fairy girl resisted, it was useless. He is my savior. He worked so hard to bring me out of the mountain. Father, mother, you can't do this to me. It's because he is your savior that we didn't kill him. If you don't listen to us, he will die. Time passed day by day. Snow Eagle was locked in the dungeon. Put this poison in his food and let him eat it every day. After half a year, he will naturally fall ill and die. Yes, village chief. You must marry him. If you don't, that poor boy will die. If you marry him, I will let him go the next day and give him a large sum of money. Okay. The third miss is getting married today. Wow, it's so lively. In the dungeon, Snow Eagle heard the conversation outside and immediately went crazy. When the guard brought him food, he knocked the guard out with all his might, snatched the key and left the dungeon. It was very lively outside. In Su Ling's room, she was wearing a bright red robe and sitting on the bed. Ling, Snow Eagle, wearing tattered clothes, rushed over. Why are you here? The maids beside her cried out in surprise. Big brother Snow Eagle. Su Ling, wearing a wedding dress, looked at Snow Eagle, her eyes red. Soon there was an uproar. The groom is here to pick up the bride. What's going on here? Quick, take this wild boy down. A fight broke out in the courtyard. This simple mountain boy was quite difficult to deal with when he went crazy. It seemed that his strength had increased a lot. Why haven't you taken him down yet? Go. The village chief of the Su family ordered. Immediately, more experts rushed forward, 2 of them using spears. Whoosh. When the spear stabbed over, Snow Eagle tried his best to raise his head and dodge, but the spear slashed across his chest. Seeing the tip of the spear whistling past, Snow Eagle's eyes moved. He suddenly felt that this spear was very familiar. Compared to the knife in his hand, this spear seemed more familiar. He reached out and grabbed the spear. With a burst of strength, the spear shaft shook violently. With exquisite technique, he shook off the opponent's hand. Whoosh! With the long spear in hand, Shui Ying actually displayed a very exquisite spear technique very naturally. The long spear was like a swimming dragon, wantonly galloping around. For a moment, the surrounding guards were all knocked down one by one. Why are you so useless? The village chief of the Su family was anxious. Rumble, heaven and earth began to tremble. With a wave of the spear, the entire wall in front of him collapsed. Even the area behind the wall within a radius of 1,000 meters was swept away by an invisible shockwave, as if it had collapsed. A large number of people were injured or killed. Everyone stared blankly at Shui Ying. This is simply inhuman. Su Ling, dressed in a red wedding dress, also looked at Snow Eagle in disbelief. Snow Eagle gradually rose into the air. He stroked the spear in his hand and looked at the distant Su Ling. Su Ling's appearance was exactly the same as Jing Qiu's. This illusory world was actually a natural projection of many of the images in his heart, which made it harder for the transcendent who was dragged into it to awaken. The instant world is ultimately just an illusion. Spear. Dongbua Shui Ying stroked the spear. It's still the spear I'm most familiar with. It's finally awakened me. Rumble, the entire illusory world began to collapse, and Dongbua Shui Ying's soul consciousness began to return. Dongbua Shui Ying opened his eyes. He saw a vast expanse of vine leaves, as well as the majestic main trunk of the sky-reaching vine. He also saw the vast dark starry sky in the distance. Everything was so quiet, so familiar. Although it was very familiar, it seemed that everything had changed. The world hasn't changed, but I have. Dongbo Shuiying smiled and stood up. And I will change the world. Jing Qiu, I succeeded. I've cleared all 5 worlds of the sky-reaching vine. Dongbo Shuiying raised his head and looked up, his heart surging. He knew that everything was about to change greatly. End of preface, ****. Chapter 347. Dongbo Shuiying turned to look at the other figure seated cross-legged on the vast vine leaf. Meishan Master was currently seated cross-legged with a calm expression on his face. This caused Dongbo Shuiying to sigh in admiration. He knew that Meishan Master had experienced much more than him. Meishan Master had experienced countless life and death situations within the temporal temple, and had even disregarded everything to leave the temporal temple. He had come to the Xia people for so many years, all for the sake of entering. How strong was the heart of such a person? Only Meishan Master has come? Dongbo Shuiying thought, I wonder how Persei and the rest are doing. Brother Persei is shouldering the fate of his family manor, and was even able to research the 8 arms technique. He is truly talented, and I hope that his wish will come true. At this moment, Dongbo Shuiying had succeeded and was about to become an honorary disciple. Naturally, he was worried about his companions. After all, Persei had gone through life and death situations with him. Many thoughts flashed through his mind. Following which, Dongbo Shuiying soared into the sky. There was no point in thinking too much. Persei and Kenhuang still had to rely on themselves. This world was just that cruel. Who? He flew to the main branch of the sky-reaching vine and flew upwards. Above him was the spatial membrane. Dongbo Shuiying. An extremely pleasant and gentle voice rang out. The green-haired girl, Shi Wei, appeared from the main branch. Senior Shi Wei. Dongbo Shuiying hurriedly stopped and bowed respectfully. Congratulations on passing the test set by the sacred master and becoming an honorary disciple. Shi Wei smiled. As an honorary disciple of the Crimson Rock Mountain, you will be able to obtain many things. The 6 ghosts resentment hex poison that you were worried about previously is just a small matter. Dongbo Shuiying nodded. He did not find it strange. The higher dimensional world had treasures that even world deities desired. Using it to cure his poison was much easier. Senior Shi Wei, may I know the current situation of Persei and Kenhuang? Dongbo Shuiying asked. The green-haired woman Shi Wei said casually, Persei and Kenhuang, who entered Crimson Rock Mountain with you, still failed to pass the 3rd vine leaf world. Only that Meishan Master broke through to the true meaning of space and reached the space deity heart realm. That's why he was able to make it to the 5th vine leaf world. Space deity heart? Dongbo Shuiying was inwardly shocked. It was said that a grade 2 deity heart could allow one to immediately open their deity sea and become a deity if they wanted to. There's nothing strange about it. The green-haired woman Shi Wei said calmly, back in the deity world, Crimson Rock Mountain accepted disciples from the outside. Countless transcendents and deities from various star fields rushed over to undergo numerous tests and selections, hoping to become an honorary disciple of Crimson Rock Mountain. Therefore, it was a must for Crimson Rock Mountain's protector disciples to become deities. Meishan Master, Kenhuang, and Persei have all cultivated for a very long time. If they couldn't even condense a grade 2 deity heart, how could they have the qualifications to become an honorary disciple? In the deity world, Crimson Rock Mountain's tests would sometimes increase in difficulty. That's because too many transcendents came to challenge it, Shi Wei said. Now that we've descended into the mortal world, this difficulty is already the most ordinary. Dongbo Shuiying muttered inwardly. Increasing the difficulty in the deity world? They were truly powerful and willful. However, that Saint Master was already dead, and Crimson Rock Mountain had descended into the mortal world. They no longer had the qualifications to be willful. Let's go. I'll send you up. The green-haired woman Shi Wei smiled. Her attitude towards Dongbo Shuiying was completely different from how she treated the other 3. In her eyes, even if Meishan Master and the others could become honorary disciples, they would be considered to have staggered over the threshold, belonging to the lowest class of honorary disciples. On the other hand, Dongbo Shuiying's innate talent was much higher. If he was nurtured well and experienced enough, he might even be able to break through to the legendary grade 1 true meaning. Shi Wei sighed in admiration. Such a genius could actually be sent here. If it were the temporal temple, the cost of transportation would definitely be ridiculously high. Even world deities would not be able to afford it. Fortunately, he was a transcendent from the Xia people's world. After Crimson Rock Mountain descended into the mortal world, it was already very fortunate for such a transcendent to enter. According to Shi Wei's thoughts, they might as well skip the test. Unfortunately, the rules set by the Saint Master were strictly obeyed by the treasure spirit of Crimson Rock Mountain. The green-haired woman, Shi Wei, and Dongbua Shuiying flew side by side upwards. The moment they came into contact with the spatial membrane, the membrane naturally parted. Wow! After passing through the membrane, Dongbua Shuiying felt the colors in front of him change. He saw that he was surrounded by endless rocks and soil. The sky-reaching vine continued passing through these rocks and soil, growing upwards. Dongbua Shuiying and Shi Wei continued advancing. The surface was about 500,000 kilometers wide. Under Shi Wei's guidance, Dongbua Shuiying's current flying speed easily broke through 5,000 kilometers per second. This was still taking care of Dongbua Shuiying, allowing Dongbua Shuiying to observe everything in detail. Otherwise, with Shi Wei's combat power, she would most likely be able to teleport directly to their destination. Finally, they broke through the surface. The sky-reaching vine also broke through the surface and continued growing upwards. Dongbua Shuiying surveyed his surroundings. This land was vast and boundless. He could faintly see countless life forms living here. In the distance, he could even sense a powerful aura that caused his heart to tremble. The entire surface covers an area of more than 500 million kilometers. There are countless life forms living here. Shi Wei explained, there are humans, insects, and many others. There are also more than 100 million deities. Dongbua Shuiying was dumbfounded as he heard this. It was fine if it covered an area of 500 million kilometers, but 100 million deities? Could the word 100 million be used to describe deities? But after thinking about it, it did make sense. It was said that there were trillions of mortal worlds in the material world. Every mortal world had given birth to many deities in its history. Not to mention the deity world and the dark abyss, where the cultivation conditions were even better, the number of deities was indeed ridiculous. Previously, Persei had said that the difference between a deity and a world deity was like the difference between a mortal and a transcendent. Just by thinking about the number of mortals, one could guess how many deities there were in the world. So what if there are more? The entire material world will reject them, and they will never be able to leave Crimson Rock Mountain. Shi Wei continued, the status of honorary disciples of Crimson Rock Mountain is much higher than ordinary deities. They do not live on this land but in the sky. Follow me. In the sky? Dongbua Shuiying followed Shi Wei and continued flying upwards along the sky-reaching vine. After flying for another 100 million kilometers, they encountered a thick layer of clouds. After passing through the layer of clouds, they continued flying upwards, but after flying for a long time, they encountered yet another layer of clouds. They passed through a total of 6 layers of clouds. Finally, they arrived at a space filled with white fog. They could finally see the peak of the sky-reaching vine. Shi Wei pointed not too far away. Dongbua Shuiying also saw a beautiful floating island. There were mountains on the island, a waterfall that looked like white silk, and the buildings were magnificent. The entire floating island covered an area of over 50,000 kilometers. That's the Crimson Dust Island. From honorary disciples to personal disciples of the Sacred Master, all of them cultivate here. Shi Wei said, follow me. Whoa. The two flew side by side. Soon they arrived at the beautiful floating island. Although the scenery on the island was beautiful, there was not a single soul in sight. It was cold and cheerless. Ever since I descended into the mortal world, no outsiders have entered Crimson Rock Mountain. Crimson Dust Island is also very cold and cheerless. With the death of the Sacred Master, no one came to guide them in their cultivation. Those disciples all went down to the lower realms. There are countless humans, insects, and even deities in the lower realms. At the very least, it can be considered lively. Dongbua Shuiying nodded. Following which, under Shi Wei's lead, the two descended together. They landed in front of an elegant pavilion. From within the pavilion, a man dressed in luxurious clothes walked out. This man's smile was filled with a strange charm. This is Senior Crimson Rock. Shi Wei introduced. What senior? He's just an artifact spirit. The man smiled. Currently, there is no one else on Crimson Dust Island. Thus I, the artifact spirit, am in charge of everything here. Dongbua Shuiying immediately understood that this man was the artifact spirit of Crimson Rock Mountain. He immediately bowed respectfully. Dongbua Shuiying greets Senior Crimson Rock. The man looked at Dongbo Shuiying and nodded with a smile. In the lower realms, not a single transcendent was born that caught my eye. Who would have thought that a mortal world could give birth to such a transcendent? How rare. Those transcendents sent down by the world deities from the deity world and the dark abyss are also inferior to Dongbo Shuiying. Shi Wei added. How can a talent like Dongbo Shuiying be so easy to find? Although Dongbo Shuiying had received 2 invitations from the temporal temple, and he knew that his talent was exceptional, Dongbo Shuiying could only stand there silently after being criticized by Shi Wei and Senior Crimson Rock. Even so, he was still very happy in his heart. You've been poisoned by the 6 ghosts' resentment? The man looked at him and smiled. It's just a small matter. There's no rush. Follow me to become a disciple of the sacred master. Only after that will you be considered a true honorary disciple. Chapter 348. The gorgeous-looking man, Crimson Rock, turned and entered the exquisite pavilion. Dongbo Shuiying and Shi Wei followed behind him. They entered the pavilion through the corridor and entered a room at the back. The gorgeous-looking man pushed open the door. The room was empty with only a praying mat and a painting hanging on the wall. On the painting was a red-robed, red-haired old man. His red beard was curled up, and his eyes were deep and unfathomable. His entire being was emitting a vast aura, and it felt as if this red-robed, red-haired old man in the painting was even vaster than the starry sky. This is the sacred master. The gorgeous-looking man said, in the past, protector disciples would kneel and pay their respects to the sacred master. But since the sacred master is dead, you should kneel and pay your respects to this painting. Yes. Dongbo Shuiying immediately knelt down. Even though the sacred master was dead, Dongbo Shuiying was still filled with admiration for him. He had seen the creation of heaven and earth, and that was the scene when the sacred master used it. It was truly amazing. After Dongbo Shuiying finished kowtowing, the gorgeous-looking man nodded slightly. The sacred master, self-titled Red Dust, was fond of traveling the countless worlds. When he met someone he disliked, he would often act. The sacred master could not bear to have so many transcendents go unnoticed, so he opened up Crimson Rock Mountain and accepted countless disciples. In fact, having reached the realm of the sacred master, he had long since become an eternal existence. It was fine for him to recruit some of the more talented transcendents or those with grade 1 true meanings. Ordinary transcendents were not worth the effort. But the sacred master is still willing to give these transcendents a chance. Dongbo Shuiying was slightly startled after hearing this. This was a good person. In the deity world and the dark abyss, there were many who received the sacred master's grace. But it was precisely because he met someone he disliked that he would act, regardless of their background. In the end, he got into a conflict with a powerful existence from the deity world and was ambushed, resulting in his death. The gorgeous-looking man shook his head. Being able to become a powerful existence means that they can look down on the entire deity world. It is almost impossible to hear news of their deaths. If the sacred master could have been more patient and less conflict with other powerful existences, he might not have ended up like this. Why did he have to endure? The green-haired woman beside him, Shi Wei, frowned and shouted, the sacred master can never be bullied. Even if he died this time, it was because he was plotted against. Otherwise, even if we can't defeat them, it won't be a problem to stay alive. It's easy to break when it's too rigid. The gorgeous man shook his head. Even if you're an almighty, you're not invincible. What's the point of saying all this now? Don't you know the holy master's temper? How many people have tried to persuade them? Some holy masters can still deal with them, but some will immediately turn hostile. Shi Wei sneered. What's more, I like holy master's personality more. Saint Master's death can only be blamed for his carelessness. I didn't think that the other party would really want his life. Dongbo Shuiying listened obediently. All right, there's no need for us to argue about this. The gorgeous man, Crimson Rock, laughed. His temperament was relatively gentle. Furthermore, Dongbo Shuiying is still listening. Only then did Shi Wei endure it. Deep down in her heart, she still worshipped the Holy Lord. Dongbo Shuiying. The gorgeous man looked at Dongbo Shuiying and said, as an honorary disciple under Holy Master, you can cultivate on Crimson Dust Island. Furthermore, you'll be able to obtain a set of deity weapons, a world deity grade secret technique of your choice, and a treasure recorded on the list. This is the list. The gorgeous man waved his hand, causing a green piece of paper to float over. Recorded on it were treasures after treasures. Dongbo Shuiying picked it up and had a look. There were many treasures recorded on the list, such as 100,000 deity crystals, a world deity grade secret technique inheritance, fire scarlet ant nest, and so on. Looking through them, he didn't understand the value of most of them. Senior Crimson Rock. Dongbo Shuang hurriedly asked. The great world deities of the deity world and dark abyss have all sent transcendence into Crimson Rock Mountain. What is their goal? World deity grade secret techniques, Shi Wei said. Are world deity grade secret techniques very precious to world deities? Dongbo Shuang asked. Shi Wei nodded. Of course. Deity grade secret techniques are created by world deities. World deity grade secret techniques are created by powerful existences. These are secret techniques that can allow world deities to cultivate and greatly increase their strength. No wonder. Dongbo Shuang suddenly understood. No wonder our Xia people have never been able to obtain deity-grade secret techniques. Only the Temple of the Earth God, Demonic Faction, and Bloodshed Tavern have them. It is very difficult for world deities to learn world deity-grade secret techniques. If one is able to become a disciple of a powerful existence, one might be able to learn 2 or 3. If one is unable to become a disciple of a powerful existence, it will be even harder to learn. Shi Wei said, there are many kinds of world deity-grade secret techniques. Even those who have learned 1 or 2 would be willing to get their hands on another one. Thus, they would naturally send transcendence into Crimson Rock Mountain. Dongbo Shuang frowned. Crimson Rock Mountain allows world deity-grade secret techniques to be leaked. Normal powers would usually control such techniques. Honorary disciples can obtain a set of deity weapons and a world deity-grade secret technique of their choice. The world deity-grade secret technique of their choice must be learned by themselves and cannot be leaked. Shi Wei pointed at the paper in Dongbo Shuang's hand. Choose any treasure on the list, and you can choose a world deity-grade secret technique inheritance of your choice. You can even give this inheritance to others. Senior Crimson Rock sighed. The other powerful existences of the deity world have all cut off the possibility of their secret techniques being leaked. The Sacred Master does this to allow his honorary disciples to exchange for treasures from world deities. Secondly, it allows those world deities to have a chance of learning the secret technique. Thus, the Sacred Master's reputation in the deity world is extremely good, and he is worshipped by countless deities. Dongbo Shuang, Shi Wei, and the gorgeous Senior Crimson Rock walked out of the pavilion and began walking around Crimson Dust Island. Senior Crimson Rock. Dongbo Shuang looked at the beautiful scenery around him and could not help but ask, then how do I cure the poison? Do I have to choose the 100,000 deity crystals on the list and buy the antidote? If that's your choice, that's fine too. The gorgeous Crimson Rock laughed. However, I do have a suggestion for you. Can't you choose any world deity grade secret technique? You can choose one of the 18 world deity grade secret techniques of my Crimson Rock Mountain. The time immemorial scripture, which is the #1 survival technique. The time immemorial scripture was created by an old friend of the Sacred Master. As long as you can master it, your 6 ghost resentment hex poison will be easily cured. Dongbo Shuang was puzzled. The time immemorial scripture? Doesn't Crimson Rock Mountain have 18 world deity grade secret techniques? I don't know about the rest. The Xia people were facing a huge threat. World deity grade secret techniques were an important aspect of raising his strength, and he could only choose one secret technique of his choice. Of the treasures on the list, Dongbo Shuang did not intend to choose a secret technique. He was more inclined to choose something that could help the Xia people resist the Sorcerer God and the Great Demon God. Treasures like the Dingjiu battleship were quite cheap. Hence, it was very likely that he could only choose one world deity grade secret technique. Of course, he had to choose the most suitable one. Haha, others? The gorgeous Crimson Rock laughed. Don't think about the others. Shi Wei also laughed. Dongbo, it is extremely difficult to master a world deity grade secret technique. Ordinary transcendence might be able to master a deity grade secret technique. But a world deity grade secret technique, even if it is just a beginner, it has a very strict requirement on one's realm. Of course, your realm isn't any weaker than some newly ascended deities. But of the 18 world deity grade secret techniques, at least with your current realm, you won't be able to master any of them. You can only master the time immemorial scripture, and that's because you have cultivated the nihility body. With the nihility body, you can easily master the time immemorial scripture. Dongbo Shuang suddenly understood. The others couldn't even master the technique? Is the time immemorial scripture very powerful? Survival first? Dongbo Shuang asked. Extremely powerful. Shi Wei said, as long as you master it, even if the original 6 ghost resentment enters your body, you will be able to expel it easily. Just stand there and let ordinary newly ascended deities attack you. They won't be able to hurt you at all. Dongbo Shuang was shocked. Even newly ascended deities wouldn't be able to hurt them the moment they master it? Otherwise, why would it be a secret technique that even world deities covet? It's just that it has a very high requirement on one's realm. Your nihility body can barely master it. Shi Wei said, have you decided? Are you going to choose the time immemorial scripture? Chapter 349. The two seniors, Shi Wei and Crimson Rock, looked at Dongbo Shuang. Dongbo Shuang pondered for a moment. Against the sorcerer god and the great demon god, preserving his life was very important. After all, he was a mere transcendent, while the other party was a lord of a material world. The other was the ancient great demon god of the dark abyss. If the two of them worked together to plot against him, he wouldn't know when he would be ambushed. He had to be strong enough to preserve his life in order to fight against them. Moreover, out of the 18 world deity grade secret techniques of Crimson Rock Mountain, this was the only one he had gained entry into. This is it. Dongbo Shuang said. Kid, your choice is correct. Crimson Rock laughed. In this world, no matter how strong you are, you have to survive first. Only then will there be hope. For example, my master was a powerful existence of the deity world, but after being ambushed once, he lost his life, unable to make a comeback. If the Saint Master had spent more effort on preserving his life, perhaps he wouldn't have ended up like this. Let's go this way. Crimson Rock brought Dongbo Shuang. The three of them traversed Crimson Dust Island, flying at a speed of 50 kilometers per second, leisurely enjoying the scenery. That canyon. Dongbo Shuang saw the entrance of a distant canyon, where the creation of heaven and earth imprint he had seen previously was. There are many imprints left there. Crimson Rock said, including the creation of heaven and earth imprint, there are also many imprints left by world deities. The disciples of my Crimson Rock Mountain can view them time and time again, and so can you. Dongbo Shuang nodded. He had seen the creation of heaven and earth once before, but he had felt that it was too short. After flying for tens of thousands of kilometers, Crimson Rock waved his hand. What was originally a forest suddenly turned into a lake, and in the middle of the lake was a statue. Woohoo! Dongbo Shuang, Crimson Rock, and Shi Wei landed on the surface of the lake and walked towards the statue. Do you see that statue? Crimson Rock pointed at it. Dongbo Shuang nodded. The statue was as tall as an ordinary person. It stood with its hands clasped behind its back and stepped on the water. The statue was entirely black, and it was a man with long flowing hair. His eyes were filled with boundless vigor. This is the myriad tribulations time immemorial scripture, a myriad tribulations time immemorial body that has been cultivated to greater mastery, Crimson Rock introduced. Time immemorial body? Dongbo Shuang was puzzled. Is it a corpse? Beside him, Shi Wei couldn't help but cover her mouth and laugh. You're really bold, kid. This is a Dharma body formed by the creator of the innumerable tribulations scripture, the innumerable tribulations body. It's called the innumerable tribulations body, and it's condensed here as a gift to our Saint Lord. The myriad tribulations primeval chaos body can give you an endless stream of cultivation techniques for the perfect body. Who is this great being? Dongbo Shuang could not help but ask. I can't tell you. I can't tell you. Red Rock shook his head. Shi Wei shook her head as well. Dongbo, remember this. You can't say the name of any great being. The moment you say it, it doesn't matter if you're in the material plane, the God realm, or the abyss. The great beings will be able to sense it immediately. If the great beings are in a bad mood, a single thought from them might be enough to kill you instantly, even if you're separated by countless dimensions. Dongbo Shuiying's mouth twitched. All right, come and receive the inheritance. Stand in front of the statue and approach it, Red Rock said. Dongbo Shuiying nodded and immediately stepped forward. When they were about 2 meters away from each other, they looked into each other's eyes. A wave shot out from the statue's eyes and instantly entered Dongbo Shuiying's eyes. At this moment, Dongbo Shuiying felt his mind buzzing. A huge amount of information surged into his mind. I, Dongbo Shuiying, under the witness of His Majesty Bloodblade, swear. Dongbo Shuiying could not help but say the oath. In the air around him, huge words of the oath could be faintly seen. This statue had its own oath array, and every single person who accepted the inheritance had to swear an oath. And the witness of the oath was none other than the Blood Blade. Blood Blade was the highest ruler of the Bloodshed God Palace. Dongbo Shuiying could faintly feel a grand and mysterious ripple coming from afar. It swept across the area before retreating. Even though Dongbo Shuiying could not help but say the oath, he understood everything in his heart. He knew that it was His Majesty Blood Blade who had probed this area. Indeed, such an existence's name could not be casually mentioned. The moment he mentioned it, no matter how remote he was, he would immediately know of it. Under the oath, large amounts of information gathered in his mind, gradually forming a whole. Finally, a statue appeared in his mind. It was this black statue, the time immemorial body. This statue stood erect in the void of his consciousness, as if it was the center of everything, eternal and indestructible. Around this statue, there were faintly countless runes flowing. So that's the case. Dongbo Shuiying understood a portion of the information. The time immemorial scripture was too vast. A mere transcendent like him could not fully comprehend it. Thus, it was currently in the form of a statue, and he could only receive the first layer of information and the contents of the first layer. The time immemorial scripture had a total of 9 layers. The body cultivated was known as the time immemorial body in the deity world, and was known as the time immemorial body. It had a body similar to time immemorial and was indestructible. The moment it reached grand completion, a single breath would be enough to destroy a world the size of the Xia people's world. Even powerful existences would find it hard to destroy this body. Hong. The white-robed Dongbo Shuiying stood on the surface of the lake. Abruptly he disappeared. He's starting to cultivate? This brat really can't wait any longer. Crimson Rock laughed. He and Shiwei stood there waiting patiently. Nihility body. His entire body turned into countless particles, fusing with the mirage. Time immemorial body. Dongbo Shuiying visualized an extremely complicated god seal in his mind. The god seal had a 3-dimensional appearance, and it was a human-shaped god seal sitting cross-legged. As he visualized and comprehended, his body was completely dispersed. Every single particle that had fused with the mirage began to be affected, and the particles began to change. In the eyes of ordinary mortals and even many transcendents, particles were the most basic structure of a body. However, the 6 ghosts resentment hexing poison could permeate into every single particle because particles could still be dissected. Particles were formed from leptons. Thus, the true meaning of particles was only a grade 3 true meaning. The true meaning of particles was a grade 2 true meaning. The time immemorial scripture was a world deity-ranked secret technique, and it was extremely difficult to even begin learning it. Fortunately, Dongbo Shuiying had cultivated the nihility body, allowing his body to completely disperse and fuse with the mirage. By relying on the mirage and the visualization of the time immemorial scripture, he could subtly influence every single particle. Through visualization, he could permeate deeper into the particles, affecting the composition of the leptons. Hong hong hong. Following the change in the layer of leptons, every single particle of Dongbo Shuiying's was trembling. The surface of those particles began to gradually expel toxins. These toxins were none other than the 6 ghosts resentment hexing poison. Clearly, the new structure of the leptons within the particles could no longer allow the hexing poison to continue entrenching itself. With such a body, even the primordial 6 ghosts resentment hexing poison would not be able to penetrate it. This feeling is too refreshing. Dongbo Shuiying could feel that he was undergoing a complete transformation. The internal structure of every single particle was changing, causing his skin, muscles, bones, and internal organs to rapidly transform. The toughness of his skin was rapidly increasing by 100 to 1,000 times. Even if Percy I, the Maishan master, and the others used their deity weapons to attack him, they would not be able to break his skin. This was an improvement in all aspects. Compared to the demonic physique of the Lords of Ulan, they were on a completely different level. Chapter 350. This was a transformation of the deepest level. Every single particle of his body had a new structure, causing every part of his body to undergo tremendous changes. Dongbo Shuiying's hair was even tougher than many precious transcendent materials, and his bones could even be used to forge deity treasures. They were far stronger than the divine bodies of many deities. After all, even after becoming a deity and obtaining the precious, time immemorial sutra, only Dongbo Shuiying would be able to cultivate it. From this, one could imagine how terrifyingly strong Dongbo Shuiying's current body was. Whoosh! After an unknown period of time, Dongbo Shuiying finally opened his eyes. This? Dongbo Shuang stared off into the distance, dazed. 10,000 kilometers away from Crimson Dust Island, a small centipede was crawling along a stone path atop a tall mountain. The hairs on the centipede's legs could be seen clearly. He could hear countless sounds in his ears, varying in frequency. These sounds were in the form of sound waves, striking against the walls of the mountain and then bouncing off or striking against the trees, causing the sound waves to spread out in other directions. The transmission of sound waves was chaotic. Every single obstacle would cause the sound waves to change slightly. Countless sound waves. Some were high and some were low. In the past, Dongbo Shuang had been unable to hear them, such as the breathing of plants. But now he could hear them all. In addition, based on the collisions of the countless sound waves, Dongbo Shuang could clearly sense the location of every single blade of grass, as well as the location of a single pebble that was 1,000 kilometers away. Just by listening, I can hear everything within 1,000 kilometers? Dongbo Shuang didn't dare believe it. He closed his eyes. Indeed, everything was incomparably clear. This was a world of sound waves. The countless sound waves caused this world to be filled with a different sort of brilliance. He could clearly sense countless objects. Would hearing countless sound waves get tired? No, it wouldn't. It was just like how an ordinary person could see countless people with a single glance and hear countless sounds. Their powerful minds could easily filter out everything, and they wouldn't feel tired at all. This is what it feels like to be a deity. Shiwei and Redrock watched this from the side. Shiwei said, after becoming a god, your divine power will condense into a divine body, and you will notice the changes in your body. Although your primordial tribulation's body is only at the first stage, it has already reached the primordial tribulation's body. However, it was still much stronger than an ordinary divine body. That's why your senses need to be sharper. How magical. Dongbo Shuang opened his eyes. I originally thought that I would need to grasp the wave true meaning or similar laws and profound mysteries to be able to sense the sound waves. But I didn't expect that I could do this just by listening. As you cultivate, your life level will continue to grow stronger. The nearby Crimson Rock said, naturally one would have many unfathomable abilities such as time. When one was a transcendent, it was very difficult to control time, but after becoming a god and possessing a god realm, one's perception of time would become even more acute, and one might even be able to gradually influence time. Crimson Rock laughed and said, as long as you become stronger, anything is possible. Yes. Dongbo Shuang nodded. Standing on the surface of the lake, although he was still dressed in white, Dongbo Shuang felt as though he had been reborn. He reached out with his right hand, slowly opened it and then suddenly clenched it. The air within his palm was instantly compressed, causing a low rumble. Just this action of clenching his palm could easily crush the lords of Ulan and the others to death. Even an ordinary newly ascended deity would not be able to withstand a casual clench from Dongbo Shuang. Too powerful, this body is too powerful. Although Dongbo Shuang had mentally prepared himself, he was still shocked when he saw the time immemorial body's initial level. The time immemorial body is qualified to be called an avatar. Even world deities desire to obtain such a secret art. The nearby Crimson Rock smiled. His handsomeness was enough to charm countless women. Dongbo Shuang muttered inwardly, you're just an artifact spirit. How can you be so handsome with just a smile? Crimson Rock continued, although it's only the first level, it's already extraordinary. Why can't I feel my primordial bloodline anymore? Dongbo Shuang asked again. Primordial bloodline? Beside him, Shiwei was speechless. Dongbo brat, what do you think a bloodline is? Bloodline? Dongbo Shuang was stunned. Bloodline concealment. Once activated, it will allow your body to reconstruct itself, giving you immense strength, speed and so on. It can even guide lightning or affect space. Shiwei sneered. And now, every particle of your body has changed. You've already undergone an earth-shattering transformation. The primordial life forms of your Xia people's world, and even the demons of the dark abyss, have you ever heard of a body that can compare to even 1/100th of your current body? Right now, you possess the strongest bloodline in the history of your Xia people's world. Crimson Rock laughed heartily. Your bloodline far surpasses all primordial bloodlines, and even the superior demon bloodlines. Dongbo Shuang was stunned. All right. That wasn't wrong at all. His current body had indeed surpassed all the bloodlines he had heard of in the transcendent stage. Moreover, it far surpassed them. Even a newly ascended deity could be casually pinched to death. This was clearly a heaven-defying feat after all, Crimson Rock Mountain had a total of 18 world deity grade secret arts. Even though he knew 3 true meanings, he could only enter one of them. One could see how harsh the entry requirements were. Previously, I was still thinking that the true meaning of Star Stage 3 realm would allow me to cultivate the so-called Star Immortal body. I even tried to guide energy to strengthen my body. However, I discovered that it was completely useless. Dongbo Shuang laughed. You're just rubbing mud on steel. Star Immortal body? What an arrogant name. A transcendent body strengthening technique that can't even be considered a secret art, yet you dare call it immortal? Crimson Rock shook his head lightly, full of disdain. That's normal. Aren't there many transcendents who call themselves emperors? Shi Wei added. Dongbo Shuang smiled as he listened from the side. He was in a good mood. Previously, he did not expect that becoming an honorary disciple would allow his strength to soar so much. Even if he wore a deity armor and stood there, allowing others to attack him, how many of them would be able to harm him? Dongbo Shuang was very clear that his time immemorial body strength, speed, vision, hearing, and so on were just natural additions. The most terrifying aspect of this body was still its survivability and defense. It was indeed worthy of being the #1 survival technique among the 18 world deity grade secret arts. Dongbo Shuang himself could not think of a way to kill him. Of course, it was also because his vision was too low. His opponents were the Sorcerer God and the Great Demon God. It was better to be cautious. 2 seniors. Dongbo Shuang hurriedly said, Honorary disciple, you can choose a set of deity weapons, a secret art of your choice, and a treasure from the list. I've also chosen the secret art, and the deity weapons are placed to the side. Now it's time to choose the treasure from the list. I'm a little vexed. Dongbo Shuang looked at the 2 in front of him. 2 seniors, do you know that our Xia people's world is currently facing the threat of the Sorcerer God and the Great Demon God? It's very likely that the 2 of them will start a war to destroy our Xia people and occupy the entire Xia people's world forever. This way, they will be able to forbid any outsiders from entering Crimson Rock Mountain and monopolize it. We're aware of this. Crimson Rock nodded. Of the 2 of them, one is a material world lord, and the other is said to be the Stage 2 Great Demon God. Beside him, Shi Wei also said, however, this will not affect us. If we want to obtain Crimson Rock Mountain, we'll still have to send transcendents to undergo the trials. Dongbo Shuang laughed bitterly. It won't affect Crimson Rock Mountain, but it will be a calamity for our Xia people. I want to ask, how should I choose the treasure on the list? Only then will I have the greatest hope of resisting the Sorcerer God and the Great Demon God. Dongbo Shuang asked. His own knowledge was insufficient. The most powerful ancestor of his Xia people was only at the peak of the deity realm. Using the words of the Temporal Temple, the defensive strategy set by the Xia people had a 99% chance of failure. One must know that the future was uncertain, but the Temporal Temple still left some leeway, which was why they said 99%. Based on the previous strength of the Xia people, there was a 100% chance of failure. Now that Dongbo Shuang had become a protector disciple, it was obvious that the Xia people's chances of success had increased dramatically. However, Dongbo Shuang had to make good use of his resources. The Xia people did not have high knowledge. However, Senior Shi Wei and Senior Crimson Rock had high knowledge. The 2 of them had followed powerful existences from the deity realm. In terms of knowledge, they were probably even higher than the Sorcerer God and the Great Demon God. This kid is really smart. Crimson Rock laughed and shook his head. He knows to ask us. Asterisk 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 asterisk. Chapter 351. Dongbo Brat. Shi Wei also looked at Dongbo Shuang and shook her head. I'll tell you the truth. You Xia people originally had no chance of winning at all. But now there should be hope for you to defend your infernal world. And this is with your help. Without your appearance, even the infernal world wouldn't have been able to be defended. Yes, that Sorcerer God and Great Demon God don't actually care about you Xia people. What they are truly afraid of is the Temple of the Earth God. Crimson Rock added, otherwise they wouldn't have needed to prepare for so long. Dongbo Shuang's expression changed slightly. Senior Shi Wei, Senior Crimson Rock, my strength has increased greatly. Could it be that even I can't stop them? Do you know what the Sorcerer God and Great Demon God's greatest reliance is? Shi Wei asked. Deity avatars? Dongbo Shuang asked. This is an important reliance. But it isn't the greatest reliance. Shi Wei said, the Temple of the Earth God can also create deity avatars. If the Bloodshed Tavern is willing, they can also create a deity avatar in your Xia people's world. But why don't they dare to occupy the Xia people's world and monopolize Crimson Rock Mountain? Yet the sorcerer god and great demon god dare to do so? Dongbo Shuang frowned. You should know that once a deity avatar awakens, it can stay in the mortal world for at most 3,000 years. Shi Wei said, after 3,000 years the deity avatar will naturally die. Without a deity avatar, it will be impossible to guard the entire Xia people's world. Don't tell me they have to create a deity avatar every 3,000 years? That's too great a price. Dongbo Shuang nodded. That's right. Occupying the Xia people's world was relatively easy, but occupying it forever was difficult. Seniors, what exactly is their greatest reliance? Dongbo Shuang asked anxiously. If my guess is correct, the sorcerer god and the great demon god can only rely on one thing, Shi Wei said. The sorcerer god is the lord of the material world. He has completely refined a mortal world. That mortal world is equivalent to his back garden. He can go in and out at any time. He can go to the god world and return to his hometown from the god world without any hindrance. Dongbo Shuang nodded. He was also aware of this. And some material realm lords would often do one thing. Shi Wei said, we will find a nearby mortal world and open up a stable space channel. After that, he continuously sent his subordinates over to take over that mortal world. Most of them were sector lord level existences. It was very easy for them to bring resources back to their homeland from the god world. After that, these resources can be used to attack other mortal worlds through stable spatial channels. Dongbo Shuang vaguely understood and his expression changed. Attacking one mortal world after another, although their true bodies are unable to enter other mortal worlds, their subordinates can enter and completely occupy them. They can then spread their faith, Shi Wei said. However, the only problem is to build a stable spatial passage. Because mortal worlds are very far apart and their spatial positions are not fixed, it is very difficult to build a stable space channel. Crimson Rock Mountain has fallen to the Xia people's world for more than 1,000,000 years. That sorcerer god probably started planning very early on. During these 1,000,000 years he should have occupied one or two mortal worlds. Moreover, they should be mortal worlds that are relatively close to your Xia people's world. After that, he would use those mortal worlds as a springboard to build a stable space channel to connect your Xia people's world and the world he occupied. In this way, as long as the channel is built, he would prepare a large amount of resources, a large number of battle fortresses, etc., which would continuously pass through the fixed space channel and instantly enter your Xia people's world. Shi Wei said. After that, he would spread the foundation and quickly occupy the Xia people's world, sweeping through everything. His resources do not need to be transported through the space-time temple because he is a material world lord and can bring resources from the deity realm into the material world himself. Then through the space channels, through the mortal worlds he occupied, he would transmit them to your Xia people's world. He has endured for so long, for this day. He spread his faith in the Beast Clan so that the Beast Clan could build a fixed space channel for him. As long as the temporary construction is successful, the resources he sends can immediately stabilize the channel completely. Shi Wei said. Without the space-time temple's oppression, he and the great demon god can throw in all their resources. A material world lord is the least afraid of risks. Their avatars are adventuring in the deity realm. If one avatar dies, they can cultivate another avatar. Therefore, material world lords are generally very rich. He can send in countless war weapons as he pleases. Divine avatars, with the help of some precious artifacts, can also display even more terrifying strength, Shi Wei said. As long as they are willing, they can manage the entire Xia people's world like a large fortress. No one will be able to get involved. Shi Wei said, this is the only possibility I can think of. They can absolutely and permanently occupy the Xia people's world. Dongbo Shuang felt a chill in his heart as he listened. He really did not dare to imagine that there would be a day when a fixed space channel connected the Xia people's world to another mortal world. An endless stream of terrifying resources would be sent in. Hundreds or even thousands of deity realm battleships would charge in, and even more terrifying war weapons would be sent in. Do you understand now? The only thing they are afraid of is the temple of the earth god. Shi Wei smiled. The faith of your Xia people's world belongs to the temple of the earth god. If they want to occupy this place, it's equivalent to stealing the flesh of the temple of the earth god. How could the temple of the earth god agree so easily? The temple of the earth god should have a sleeping body for a long time that can allow a world god to descend. If the temple of the earth god descends, it will definitely be an extremely powerful world god, or even a terrifying stage 3 world god. Such a divine avatar will definitely be able to destroy the stable space channel at the first moment. Therefore, the sorcerer god and the great demon god need to prepare sufficient preparation, and then crush everything in one fell swoop, Shi Wei said. In fact, just in case, they might even reach an agreement with the Temple of the Earth God. Dongbo Shuiying could not help but ask, the Temple of the Earth God will help them? That's not very likely. Shi Wei shook her head. After all, the Temple of the Earth God is spreading their faith in your Xia people's world. They would not dare to openly betray their people who believe in them. However, it is possible for them to watch from the sidelines and not do anything. Then what about my Xia people? Dongbo Shuiying asked. They did not expect that at the crucial moment, a transcendent like you would appear in the Xia people. Shi Wei shook her head. If they fail, the biggest reason is that they let you go. Dongbo Shuiying was helpless. They had already paid a huge price to deal with him, and they had even poisoned him with the 6 ghosts' resentment. Before they could establish a stable space channel, the sorcerer god and the great demon god did not have any good methods to deal with him. After all, they had sent down some powerful items. They were all exploited by the temporal temple. You Xia people can defend the infernal world, Shi Wei said. Give up on the Xia people's world and hide in the infernal world. This will increase your chances. You can exchange for 100,000 deity crystals on the list. 100,000 deity crystals can buy many treasures and make the infernal world more stable. With your help, even if the sorcerer god and the great demon god attack with all their might, there is still a high chance of defending the infernal world. Defend the infernal world and cultivate in peace. When you become a deity or even stronger, you are a native of the Xia people. When you become a deity, as long as you can still enter the Xia people's world within 10,000 years, you can completely destroy them in one fell swoop. Even if they manage to make the Xia people's world so hard to destroy, as long as you refine the world core of the Xia people's world within 10,000 years and become the overlord, they will definitely lose. They will definitely lose, Shi Wei said. Dongbo Shuiying frowned. Give up the entire Xia people's world? Wait until he was strong enough to counterattack? If there was really no other way, then this was the only way. In the history of the Xia people, there were more than one time when they were forced to retreat to the infernal world. Even if we defend the infernal world, there is no absolute certainty, right? Dongbo Shuiying asked. There are no absolutes in war. After all, your opponent can use far more resources than you can, Shi Wei said. The only advantage you Xia people have is your personal strength. Dongbo Shuiying nodded. He already understood the predicament. But the countless humans in the Xia people's world will be slaughtered just like that? Is there a way to defend and repel them? Dongbo Shuiying asked. Defending the infernal world will require you to risk your life. To repel them completely? That will be even more difficult, Shi Wei said. You have to be stronger. Have more resources. There is a way? Dongbo Shuiying's eyes lit up. Become an inner disciple of Crimson Rock Mountain, Shi Wei said. Chapter 352. Inner Disciple? Dongbo Shuiying's heart skipped a beat. Shi Wei looked at him, the corners of her mouth curling upwards. The Sacred Master's disciples are divided into honorary disciples, inner disciples and personal disciples. Personal disciples have the highest status, followed by inner disciples and finally honorary disciples. However, even though the Sacred Master has lived for so long, he has only accepted 3 personal disciples. The requirements for becoming a personal disciple are very strict. One must either have a grade 1 true meaning, or one must grasp a grade 1 deity heart within 10,000 years. If one meets either of these criteria, the Sacred Master will take the initiative to accept him as a disciple. Dongbo Shuiying muttered to himself. A grade 1 true meaning transcendent? That was ridiculously difficult. Grasping a grade 1 deity heart within 10,000 years was relatively easier. After all, one could first condense a grade 2 deity heart before breaking through to grade 1. Most grade 1 true meaning transcendents could condense a grade 1 deity heart within 3,000 years. Of the 3 personal disciples the Sacred Master accepted, one is a grade 1 true meaning transcendent, another grasped a grade 1 deity heart within 10,000 years. The last one was the Sacred Master's favorite, so he made an exception to accept him as a personal disciple, Shi Wei said. Since the Sacred Master is dead, he can no longer make an exception. Thus, becoming a personal disciple of the Sacred Master is very simple. You just need to grasp a grade 1 true meaning or a grade 1 deity heart within 10,000 years. Dongbo Shuiying helplessly said, if only I could grasp a grade 1 true meaning, the calamity of the Xia people would have long been resolved. Shi Wei was startled. She immediately understood that Dongbo Shuiying was still most concerned about the calamity of the Xia people. That's right. If you can grasp hold of a grade 1 true meaning, your personal combat power will surpass your current level. You will be able to defeat the armies of the sorcerer god and the great demonic god and destroy that stable spatial passage. Shi Wei nodded. As long as this news is leaked, there will definitely be powerful existences from the deity world who will take the initiative to accept you as a disciple. The sorcerer god and the great demon god? They aren't even worth mentioning. However, it is best not to reveal the fact that you have grasped a grade 1 true meaning. Regardless of who your teacher is, the moment it is leaked, you will be seen as a thorn in their side and will be eliminated with all their might. As for the grade 1 true meaning's absolute transcendence, many of them were killed during their early stages of growth. Shi Wei said helplessly, that's why the grade 1 true meaning transcendence in history are usually very cautious. Only after they become world deities would they gradually make the news public. Dongbo Shuiying nodded. Grade 1 true meaning, he also wanted to, but from the information he had obtained, how difficult would it be to break through? This kind of thing could not be forced. He could only let nature take its course. He just needed to do his best in cultivation. Thinking too much about other things would instead affect his state of mind. I wouldn't dare to force myself to become a direct disciple. Dongbo Shuiying asked. But how can I become an inner disciple? Follow me, Crimson Rock said. This was a long stone path with stone steps that led to the peak of a tall mountain in the distance. Crimson Rock, Shi Wei and Dongbo Shuiying all came to the side of the stone path. Crimson Rock pointed into the distance. This is the path of reflection. It is a test of your inner heart. It is much more difficult than the test of the 5th vine leaf of the sky-reaching vine. After becoming a deity, the disciples of Crimson Rock Mountain will walk this path of reflection. It is split into 3 sections. Transcendents only need to walk through the first section to reach the threshold of becoming an inner disciple. Dongbo Shuiying looked at this path of reflection thoughtfully. It seemed that the powerful existences of the deity world placed great importance on the inner heart of a cultivator. A 9-storied pagoda. Very soon, Crimson Rock and Shi Wei brought Dongbo Shuiying to the front of this pagoda. This is the Soaring Cloud Pagoda. Crimson Rock pointed at the 9-storied pagoda. When transcendents enter, it will be a battle between transcendents. When deities enter, it will be a battle between deities. As long as you can pass through 6 floors, you will reach the threshold of becoming an inner disciple. Both the path of reflection and the Soaring Cloud Pagoda must meet the requirements. Once you pass the first section of the path of reflection and the 6th floor of the Soaring Cloud Pagoda, you will naturally become an inner disciple. Crimson Rock looked at Dongbo Shuiying. These are the conditions set by the Sacred Lord. No one can change them. I understand. Dongbo Shuiying nodded. The path of reflection and the Soaring Cloud Pagoda? Is very difficult. Your cultivation is still too low. Crimson Rock shook his head. You'll know once you try. You still need to cultivate bitterly and become an inner disciple before the war breaks out. Amen? Dongbo Shuiying nodded. Now that he was an honorary disciple, he had already given Xia people a chance to fight. However, he still needed to become stronger. Crimson Rock lightly pointed at the void, and a dense array of words condensed in the air. Dongbo Shuiying raised his head, and a look of joy appeared on his face. If you are still an honorary disciple when the war breaks out, then follow this plan, Crimson Rock said. First, exchange for 100,000 deity crystals, then use those 100,000 deity crystals to exchange for various treasures. Dongbo Shuiying frowned. Out of the 100,000 deity crystals, 30,000 deity crystals are to be used to purchase a large number of deity corpses? To nurture your blood-creeping flower, Crimson Rock said. The blood-creeping flower is a plant life form with a huge body and a strong life force. It's an extremely suitable weapon of war. Letting it absorb the energy of heaven and earth is too slow, and absorbing deity crystals is too extravagant. Deity corpses are the best. The corpses of deities contain extremely strong energy and are much cheaper than deity crystals. 30,000 deity corpses is more than enough for the blood-creeping flower to grow to the late-stage deity realm. However, I estimate that it will need 10 years to reach the mid-stage deity realm, and 30 years to reach the late-stage deity realm. Even if the blood-creeping flower is only at the mid-stage deity realm, it is still different from ordinary deities. Its body is huge, and its countless vines cover an area of 10,000 li. Wanting to kill it would be even harder than killing a late-stage deity realm expert. Dongbo Shuang nodded. Plant life forms indeed had an extremely strong life force. You have to hurry and send the blood-creeping flower to the Xia people's world, Crimson Rock said. After all, it isn't a native of the Xia people's world. Only by becoming a deity within the Xia people's world will it not be rejected. Then send it over. Once the blood-creeping flower breaks through to deity, the commotion it causes will be huge. I'm afraid that everyone will know that a deity has been born, right? Dongbo Shuang frowned. It's good that they know. Shi Wei said complacently, if the sorcerer god, the great demon god, hesitates and wants to delay the war by 10,000 years, then Dongbo brat, you will have sufficient strength to cultivate. If you cultivate within the Crimson Rock Mountain, you might have already refined the world core of the Xia people's world. Dongbo Shuang frowned. From what you guys said, since the sorcerer god, the great demon god, is so confident, I'm afraid that he won't delay the war just because of the birth of a deity. Even if he doesn't delay it, they will still think of ways to find out more about the Xia people's background. More importantly, they will want to know whether you are dead or alive, Shi Wei said. As long as you continue to stay within the Crimson Rock Mountain and don't leave, it will be extremely difficult for them to investigate. Unless they go through the Temporal Temple, which is unable to infiltrate the Crimson Rock Mountain. They can only investigate through the blood-creeping flower, which is very troublesome for the Temporal Temple. Thus, if they were to investigate through the Temporal Temple, the price would be ridiculously high. If they were to really buy the information, they would lose a huge amount of deity crystals. At the very least, they would lose 1 million deity crystals. If they don't buy the information, then they will never know about your background. This will be even more beneficial to you. Dongbo Shuang couldn't help but nod slightly. If I don't return to the Xia people's world? Dongbo Shuang couldn't help but ask, then how will I contact the Xia people? The Crimson Rock Mountain is equivalent to an independent world. It is extremely close to the Xia people's world. Thus, you can use a communication treasure to communicate with them, Crimson Rock said. I don't need too much. Just 100 deity crystals will do. I will add some materials from the Crimson Rock Mountain to it. The materials from the Crimson Rock Mountain can isolate all probing laws. Unless a powerful existence from the deity world personally acts, the Temporal Temple won't be able to see through this communication treasure. Dongbo Shuang immediately thought of an item. It was a cloth bag left behind by Ancestor Black Wind, which could isolate all probing laws. You can use the communication treasure to contact the Xia people at any time. But you and even your avatar will not be able to return. Even if the Temporal Temple were to reverse time and investigate, they wouldn't be able to find out that you came out from the Crimson Rock Mountain. If they want to confirm whether you are alive or dead, they will have to go through the blood-creeping flower. However, the blood-creeping flower has already stepped into the deity stage. Controlling a deity stage plant life form is extremely difficult. The Temporal Temple will offer an astonishing price to the sorcerer god, the great demon god. Crimson Rock smiled. They knew a lot, so they understood the rules. Naturally, they could use a small amount of resources to maximize their effectiveness. Dongbo Shuang thought about it carefully and felt that there wasn't a problem. On the same day, Dongbo Shuang had already arranged everything. Master. The blood-creeping flower transformed into a red-skinned female doll whose body was covered in green leaves and red flowers. Shueman, be careful on this trip. Go to my hometown, Water Rights Town Snowrock Castle and find Jianghu. Dongbo Shuang instructed. Yes. The blood-creeping flower was extremely obedient. Alright, go ahead, little fellow. Go to the world of the Xia people and grow up well, Crimson Rock said as he waved his hand. Beside him, Shi Wei had a complicated look in her eyes. She was envious. After all, it had been a long time since she had left Crimson Rock Mountain. The blood-creeping flower disappeared. He left Crimson Rock Mountain and arrived in the outside world of the Xia people. In the world of the Xia people, within the Tranquil Sun Province, Azure River County, Water Rights Town Snowrock Castle, Jianghu was currently residing there. She was certain that the moment her husband returned, he would return to Snowrock Castle first. More than 4 years. Jianghu held onto the railing as she looked at the snow-covered Snowrock Mountain. Her heart was heavy, because according to the information she had received, 3 years was more than enough time for them to challenge the sky-reaching vine. After not returning for more than 4 years, Jingqiu became even more anxious and uneasy. She couldn't believe it and she didn't want to accept that it was a terrible outcome. He'll definitely come back, he definitely will, Jingqiu said quietly. Chapter 353. Jingqiu walked out of her residence and into the Snow Rock Castle. The children of the Dongbo clan within the castle were all very respectful, standing at a distance to greet her respectfully. The servants and guards did not dare to approach her. In Snow Rock Castle, Jingqiu's position was the most special. She was the wife of Dongbo Shuiying and the most powerful transcendent in the castle. These children. Jingqiu looked at the children of the Dongbo clan and could not help but grin. Shuiying, you said that we would also have a child. Soon she walked out of the castle and reached the top of the mountain. Jingqiu sensed something and looked at the distant sky. She couldn't help but feel a sense of anticipation in her heart. She saw a crack in the sky and a cute red-skinned girl with green leaves and red flowers flew out. Who is she? Jingqiu was confused. This is Snow Rock Castle. You are not allowed to trespass. A white mist condensed in the air and formed an ape, blocking the girl's path. The white fog ape was cautious. The girl in front of it was not ordinary. Haha. The girl was overjoyed. I was looking for Snow Rock Castle. I Shuiman am too smart. I found it immediately. By the way, where is Mage Jingqiu? I want to see her. Who are you? The white fog ape frowned. This girl who could easily tear through space must have the power of a demigod. How could it let her pass so easily? Dongbo Shuiying is my master. I am here on his orders, the girl said. The white fog ape was shocked. Dongbo Shuiying? You are here on Snow Eagle's orders? A figure appeared in the air. It was Jingqiu. Jingqiu's original body was still on the top of the mountain. She was just using the protection of Snow Rock Castle to create an energy body. Shuiman looked happy and knelt in the air. Shuiman greets mistress. What proof do you have? Jingqiu did not believe her immediately. Mistress, please take a look. Shuiman waved her hand and a red spear appeared in her hand. Jingqiu couldn't help but reach out to grab it. Stroking the spear, she muttered, Stellar Fire Cloud Spear? Why was his weapon here? Did something happen to Snow Eagle? To an expert, how important was a weapon? But now that Dongbo Shuiying had gotten rid of the voodoo toxin, his Dantian Sea of Qi had long since produced demigod battle Qi. He could also use divine weapons. Naturally, he would be able to choose better weapons on Crimson Dust Island. The Stellar Fire Cloud Spear was temporarily returned as a keepsake. Mistress, refine it and you will know. Shuiman threw a red ring over. The ring was very beautiful. Wah! The red ring quickly flew to Jingqiu's main body, who was at the top of the mountain in the distance. She stretched out her slender finger and easily refined the ring. Sensing with his spiritual power, he could immediately sense the scene inside the ring. Jingqiu. The white-robed Dongbo Shuiying was smiling as he spoke to her. Snow Eagle, are you leaving behind an image or are you talking to me? Jingqiu was somewhat apprehensive and didn't dare to believe it. She was afraid that Dongbo Shuiying was already dead, leaving behind only an image. Of course I'm talking to you, Dongbo Shuiying said. Hearing this answer, Jingqiu's tears flowed down her face. Don't cry. Dongbo Shuiying hurriedly said. Yes. Jingqiu nodded repeatedly. How are you now? I succeeded. Dongbo Shuiying revealed a smile. I passed the sky-reaching vine and became an honorary disciple of Crimson Rock Mountain. The voodoo toxin has long since been dispelled, and I am the first to become an honorary disciple. I reckon that Maishan Master will become an honorary disciple as well, barring any accidents. Jingqiu's heart was filled with joy. Before this she had been very worried. Palace Lord Qin and the others were also very worried. Although they didn't say it out loud, deep in their hearts, they all had a vague feeling that the chances of Dongbo Shuiying dying were very high. After all, too much time had passed. Ask Shuiman to give you the storage treasure. Dongbo Shuiying said. All right. Jingqiu immediately went to ask for it. Shuiman had already flown to the top of the mountain. She respectfully presented a jade-colored bracelet to Jingqiu. After refining the bracelet, Jingqiu immediately sensed the huge amount of treasures inside. Jingqiu, this is very important. Listen to me carefully. Dongbo Shuiying began telling her about the various matters, allowing his wife to handle them. His wife was also a transcendent magus. She would remember everything he said clearly. I understand. 15 years? All right, I understand. These treasures are worth 8,000 deity crystals? The blood-creeping flower is that powerful? You bought so many deity corpses for her? All right. Jing Qiu agreed. Her heart was filled with joy. Her husband was still alive. This was the biggest surprise to her. Furthermore, he had successfully dispelled the poison. The two of them could truly be together for a long time. They talked about the important matters for a whole hour. Snow Eagle, I realize that you've become very long-winded. Jing Qiu teased him with a smile. This matter concerns the entire Xia people. We have to be careful. Dongbo Shuiying said. Don't worry. I will definitely do it properly. I will report to you after I'm done. Jing Qiu smiled. Of course I believe in my wife. My wife is the most powerful transcendent magus in the past 1,000 years. Shuiying sighed in admiration. What he said was not wrong. Even though Jing Qiu had become a transcendent slightly later than Shuiying and Yuan Qing, she was still very young. Mages had always placed more emphasis on accumulating experience, and from the perspective of a mage, Jing Qiu's cultivation speed was already very formidable. It's been a long time since we last met. You contacted me through the communication artifact and talked about a lot of important matters. Is there nothing you want to tell me? Jing Qiu asked. Dongbo Shuiying immediately thought about it. He then smiled. I've already dispelled the poison. When I get out, let's have a child together. No, let's have a bunch of children. Jing Qiu's face was completely red. A bunch of children? Don't worry. Our children will definitely have the most powerful bloodline in the history of the Xia people. Dongbo Shuiying was incomparably confident. What a joke. He had the time immemorial physique. His bloodline definitely surpassed all primordial bloodlines and demon bloodlines. On the same day, Jing Qiu set off for the Infernal Realm. Inside the Infernal Palace, she met with Palace Lord Qin. Jing Qiu, why are you here? Palace Lord Qin was a little surprised. What's the matter? The Snow Eagle asked me to inform you, Jing Qiu said. The war between the Sorcerer God and the Great Demon God should erupt in 15 years. Palace Lord Qin was shocked. The Snow Eagle has returned? He's still at Crimson Rock Mountain. He asked another life form to pass on the message, Jing Qiu said. Is he alive or dead? Palace Lord Qin asked. I don't know either, Jing Qiu said. This was also what Dongbo Shuiying had told her. Apart from Jing Qiu, the news of him becoming an honorary disciple was not to be leaked to anyone else. The Snow Eagle also received some news from inside. He said that the Sorcerer God is the Lord of the material world. Jing Qiu began to say a lot, causing Palace Lord Qin's expression to change. The Snow Eagle also received some treasures and gave them out. Some of them are helpful for cultivation. Palace Lord Qin, you distribute them. Let the top demigods of the Xia people consume them. They will be very helpful for cultivation. Who knows, they might even give birth to a god. Yes. Palace Lord Qin nodded and immediately took a storage treasure. This time the Eastern European Snow Eagle exchanged many spiritual fruits, spiritual liquids and other rare treasures, all of which were helpful for cultivation. He wanted the Xia people to give birth to 1 or 2 more gods. A small portion was given to Jing Qiu, while the rest was distributed to Palace Lord Qin. Very quickly, Palace Lord Qin began to make arrangements. Originally, the entire Xia people had already begun to migrate. Now that they had received more information, they understood that the war would be crueler than they had expected. They also knew when the war would break out. The migration of the Xia people was even faster and more straightforward. No one had any wishful thinking anymore. The transcendent clans migrated one by one, including legend rankers and various talents. After all, the Infernal Realm was only so big. Although the migration of the entire Xia people was heartless, they could only migrate the talents first. Great migration, it was very cruel. The entire Xia people's world began to become chaotic. Many well-informed people tried to bring their families to the Infernal Realm. Chapter 354. Crimson Dust Island. Within a cultivation grotto belonging to a protector disciple. Other than the protector disciple, no one else was allowed to enter. Within a meditation room within the cultivation grotto. The meditation room was octagonal in shape. The ceiling was conical and there were countless golden deity imprints on it. There were also 18 jasper cores, 9 dragon essence pearls glowing faintly gold, and a cube-shaped blood-red blood jade at the center. In the god realm, The jasper heart was a precious treasure that could only be formed in the depths of a planet that was completely covered in ice. The faint golden dragon marrow pearl was something that only peak-stage deity dragons could possess. As for the most precious blood jade, it was something that could only be found in the depths of the legendary Blood Sea Abyss of the Dark Abyss. Just a small piece of it was worth more than 500,000 deity crystals. Just the cost of this meditation room alone was more than 3 million deity crystals. It was enough to empty the pockets of some ordinary world deities. Of course, Dongbo Shuang only had the right to use it. So comfortable. Sitting cross-legged in the meditation room, he felt unprecedentedly comfortable. Formless energy continuously seeped into his body and soul. This feeling was not inferior to eating some spirit fruits. Furthermore, the surrounding world energy had formed a faint mist that could be easily absorbed. The effect was not inferior to absorbing origin stones. Evidently, becoming a protector disciple meant nothing to origin stones. No wonder faction head Chao Qing was able to open the deity sea in his body after entering the cultivation grotto. Dongbo Shuang looked around and praised, "The conditions here are truly beyond my imagination." Time acceleration tenfold. Dongbo Shuang said. Wang, the flow of time in the meditation room immediately accelerated. A day in the outside world would be 10 days in the meditation room. Time acceleration hundredfold. Dongbo Shuang carefully sensed the flow of time. He had already experienced it when he was in the valley on the second leaf of the sky-reaching vine. Time acceleration thousandfold. Dongbo Shuang said. The flow of time in the meditation room immediately increased explosively. Dongbo Shuang's expression changed slightly. He could feel the surrounding space distorting, and the laws of heaven and earth were also distorting. Time acceleration 10,000-fold. Dongbo Shuang shouted out the highest speed that an protector disciple could control. Boom. It was as if the entire quiet room had suddenly frozen. All the laws of heaven and earth seemed to have been thrown into chaos. The powerful power of time had completely destroyed the balance of the laws of heaven and earth. No wonder. Dongbo Shuang shook his head. What Senior Shiwei and the others said to me was indeed true. Accelerating time isn't as good as we thought. Even the balance of the laws of heaven and earth is starting to be destroyed. Previously, Shiwei and the others had said, time acceleration to increase your strength faster? What a joke. Any of the almighty existences of the God realm could easily accelerate time by 10,000 times, or even 10 million times. The temporal island, for example, was even more powerful when it came to time acceleration. Under the environment of time acceleration, if one could continuously increase one's power level, one would not be able to do so. This way we can train our subordinates on a large scale. It's like being in a high-speed warship. When you look at the scenery outside, it will feel blurry. In a space where time flows at high speed, even the originally stable rules of the world will feel distorted and blurry. From ancient times until now, in an environment where the flow of time is accelerated, I've never heard of anyone breaking through bottlenecks by comprehending the heavens and earth. Dongbo Shuang immediately understood. No wonder. No wonder Persei was unable to break through his bottleneck even after cultivating for so long in the second vine leaf world. Meishan Master and the others were also unable to break through their bottlenecks in the second vine leaf world. Even his own improvement in his three true meanings was very small. He had only consolidated his realm and perfected his secret arts. At this moment, in the secret room where time was truly accelerated by 10,000 times, Dongbo Shuang could feel it very strongly. The laws of the world were distorted to the point where they could no longer be felt. Evidently, if the flow of time was too exaggerated, it could only be used for combat or normal life. It was impossible to use it for cultivation. No wonder the time in the second vine leaf world is only accelerated by 100 times. Dongbo Shuang nodded. With time accelerated by 100 times, the laws of the world aren't too distorted. At least it won't affect my research and comprehension of secret arts. However, if I want to break through my bottleneck and truly comprehend the profound mysteries of the laws of the world, I still have to cultivate under the normal flow of time, under the most perfect laws of the world. However, it's already very good. Dongbo Shuang revealed a smile. My spear's secret art has only been created. Star Meteor Annihilation. How can this move be considered a spear art? I can definitely continue to research other secret arts. Researching secret arts under 100 times faster time. Cultivating true meanings under the normal flow of time. He then closed his eyes and began to meditate. As for what had happened in the world of the Xia people because of his message, he could not be distracted. Right now he was focused on raising his strength as much as possible. It would be best if he could become an inner disciple. It really is different. After getting rid of the voodoo poison, his soul became very clear. After cultivating the time immemorial body, his body became strong and his soul was nourished. In the meditation room, the effect of cultivating was even better. With these three aspects combined, Dongbu Shui Ying's current cultivation was incomparably smooth. He pondered over the profound mysteries of his true meanings. Many of the puzzles he had in the past immediately began to fervently deduce and understand. The main reason was that in the past he had always been using spear arts, and was unable to truly deduce them. At this moment he was deducing to his heart's content. Occasionally he would stand up and take out a black spear, practicing and verifying. This pitch-black spear was a low-grade divine artifact. There was no helping it. Although demigod transcendents could use deity weapons, they could only use low-grade deity weapons. Unless the blood-refined deity weapon resonated with one's soul, one could only use top-grade deity weapons. For example, Grand Elder Ao Lan could use the Sorcerer God's Saber. For example, Jing Qiu could use Senior Snow's Saber. Both the Sorcerer God's Saber and Senior Snow were top-grade deity weapons. Shuiying was not so lucky as to find a spear that could resonate with his soul, so he could only choose this low-grade deity rank spear made from excellent materials. It was called the Black Crow Spear, and it was said that the spear's shaft was refined from the bones of a creature called the Black Crow, and its toughness was excellent. On Crimson Dust Island he was the only one. The disciples who were cultivating on Crimson Rock Mountain when the Sacred Master died had all descended. Oh, strictly speaking, on Crimson Dust Island, besides Dongbu Shuiying, there was also the weapon spirit Senior Crimson Rock. Path of Reflection. Dongbu Shuiying stopped and raised his head. In front of him was a long stone path. The stone steps extended all the way to the peak of the distant mountain. To become an inner disciple, I have to pass the first section of the Path of Reflection and the 6th floor of the Soaring Cloud Pagoda. Dongbu Shuiying immediately stepped onto the stone steps. When his right foot stepped onto the first stone step, he felt his body sink. A feeling of weakness immediately spread throughout his body and soul. It was so tiring and it was hard for him to take another step. Interesting. How strong was Dongbu Shuiying's mental state? He could still laugh and joke even after being tortured by the voodoo poison for 100 years. This feeling of weakness was something he could easily endure. Step by step, the more he walked, the weaker and more tired he became. Not just his body but his soul as well. Boundless exhaustion washed over him, and he felt like he could lose consciousness and collapse at any moment. Dongbu Shuiying had never thought that he would be this tired after cultivating the time immemorial body. What he did not know was that the Path of Reflection targeted one's soul and heart. No matter how strong one's body was, it would be useless. Let's go, continue. It's still early. Dongbu Shuiying tried his best to stay awake. He continued walking. But on the stone steps, Dongbu Shuiying started to sway with every step he took. It was as though his entire body was strenuous, and he had to accumulate energy with every step he took to stay awake. Peng. Finally, boundless exhaustion drowned Dongbu Shuiying's consciousness. Even his strong mental state was unable to endure it. His entire body swayed and he collapsed onto the ground. He directly fell down from the stone steps, falling towards the sky. Dongbu Shuiying's eyes were closed as he fell into a deep sleep. It was obvious that he had fallen into a deep slumber due to exhaustion. With a plop, he fell 800 meters from the ground and smashed onto the ground, crushing all the flowers and grass around him. Whoa! Only then did Shuiying wake up. He blinked his eyes and looked up. Only then did he wake up. I actually fell asleep? Chapter 355. Had he fallen asleep? Ever since he had entered Crimson Rock Mountain and risked his life, he had never slept in the past 4 years. Actually, at his current level, sleeping was just a habit, a pleasure, and not a necessity. When he had fallen from the Path of Reflection, he had definitely fallen into a deep sleep. Although it had only been a short while, he had felt very comfortable after falling to the ground and waking up. I'm only halfway through the first section of the Path of Reflection? Let's try again. Dongbu Shuiying immediately took a step forward, leaving behind an afterimage as he arrived at the beginning of the Path of Reflection. He once again stepped onto the stone steps, walking upward step by step. Although the feeling of exhaustion engulfed his soul, it was getting stronger and stronger. Dongbu Shuiying, on the other hand, sought a transcendent state of mind. Just like when he was suffering from the pain of the voodoo poison, he was able to minimize the effects of the pain and maintain an empty mind. But the feeling of exhaustion on the path of reflection was endless. The more he walked, the stronger it would become, far surpassing the effects of the voodoo poison. Wake up. Stay awake. It's all an illusion. Dongbo Shuiying worked hard to make his soul even more ethereal, abandoning all influences. Even if the wind and sand filled the sky, he would still stand tall. In mid-air, there were currently 4 figures standing side by side, watching as Dongbo fell asleep and fell down the path of reflection time and time again. They were Shiwei, Crimson Rock, a youth in a thick robe and a youth in a scarlet cloak. The thick-robed youth watched from afar and revealed a smile. This kid is quite impressive. He has walked the path of reflection time and time again. This is the 6th time, right? He actually walked 20 more steps than the first time. He actually improved in such a short period of time. Perhaps he really does have a chance of becoming an inner disciple and becoming our little junior brother. Old 7, don't you think so? The scarlet-cloaked youth nodded. He has just cultivated the myriad tribulations body, and his body is nourishing his soul. In less than 10 years, his soul will be at least twice as strong as it is now. His heart will be tempered a bit more, and passing the first section shouldn't be a problem. Do you think it's possible for him to take us away in the future? The thick-robed youth asked. How difficult would it be to bring us away? The scarlet-cloaked youth shook his head. The laws of the material world are incomparably tyrannical. Even the mighty powers of the deity realm are unable to forcibly descend upon it. Only the lords of the material world are able to freely enter and exit it. But when the lords of the material world return to the material world from the deity realm, they can only bring some inanimate objects or ordinary transcendence with them. Deity-level experts and even stronger experts could not be brought into the material world. Unless he had a heavenly abode treasure. Paradise treasures can carry living beings and can isolate the detection of the material world. Back then, we were forcefully thrown into the material world from within Crimson Rock Mountain. However, obtaining an Eden treasure was simply too difficult. Back then, Master only had Crimson Rock Mountain as his only Eden treasure. Second senior brother, if we want to get out, we can't rush it. We have to be patient. I understand. The thick-robed youth nodded lightly. The thick-robed youth grinned and looked at Crimson Rock. Senior Crimson Rock, can't you lower the requirements for becoming my master? It has to be a personal disciple, a world deity, Crimson Rock said. Without an exceptional talent who has comprehended a grade 1 true meaning, it's impossible for him to avenge Master. If he can't become a world deity, he won't be able to refine Crimson Rock Mountain either. A grade 1 true meaning transcendent? Or he has to grasp a grade 1 deity heart within 10,000 years. The thick-robed youth shook his head. Master has lived for so long, yet he's only accepted 2 people who meet these requirements. Even if Dongbo Shuiying has become a world deity, if he isn't a personal disciple, how would he be able to find an Eden treasure? Among our group of fellow disciples, only eldest brother Huiming had a heavenly abode treasure. Senior brother Huiming had a very special status amongst the disciples of Crimson Rock Mountain. He was the leader of the 3 great personal disciples. He was the idol of worship for all the disciples. In the deity world, senior brother Huiming's brilliance was even more dazzling than his master, sacred master Crimson Dust. Even though he wasn't a powerful existence, he was close to it. I wonder if senior brother Huiming has become a powerful existence, the scarlet-cloaked youth said. According to Ancestor, he hasn't, Shiwei replied. AI. In our Crimson Rock Mountain lineage, only senior brother Huiming has a chance of becoming a powerful existence. What a pity. The scarlet-cloaked youth was somewhat unresigned. The thick-robed youth beside him shook his head. Senior brother Huiming was wantonly spreading his faith. It said that over 100 million mortal worlds were the source of his faith. His faith allowed him to become powerful, but it also restricted him greatly. Wanting to become a powerful existence is simply too difficult. It's only been 1,000,000 years since we fell into the material world. How could eldest senior brother Huiming break through so quickly? Let's not talk about it. Let's look at that little fellow Donghua. The scarlet-cloaked youth looked into the distance. He's walked the path of reflection 10 times today. It seems he's about to give up. He's not giving up. Look, he's going to the soaring cloud pagoda. The thick-robed youth said. The 2 of them were the only 2 world deities in Crimson Rock Mountain other than Shiwei. This heart needs to be polished frequently. Otherwise, the slightest negligence will cause one to fall behind. Dongbo Shuang quite liked the path of reflection. If he didn't have the path of reflection, then he could only cultivate his spear techniques, merging his heart with his spear and tempering his will over and over again. Alas, the effects of the path of reflection couldn't compare to the path of reflection. The path of reflection directly targeted the heart of one's soul. Walking it 10 times a day would be extremely effective. Dongbo Shuang soon arrived in front of the towering 9-story pagoda. This was the Soaring Cloud Pagoda. One had to pass through 6 floors in order to become an inner disciple. The Soaring Cloud Pagoda's doors were wide open. Dongbo Shuang stepped inside. Inside the pagoda there was a spacious circular space. A white-bearded old man sat cross-legged with 2 swords strapped to his back. When Dongbo Shuang stepped into the spacious circular space, the white-bearded old man opened his eyes, and a smile appeared on his face. He looked at Dongbo Shuang with a gleam of excitement in his eyes. Someone's finally here. It's been a long time since I last fought and I'm about to suffocate to death. Although this body on the first floor is weaker, and the power I use is also weaker, it won't be that easy for you to win. Let me see how powerful you are. Dongbo Shuang stretched out his right hand, and a black spear appeared in his hand. Dongbo Shuang's battle intent was also boiling. How many years had it been? This was the first time he wasn't plagued by the hexing poison, and the time immemorial body filled his body with energy. This surging feeling made him thirst for battle. Moreover, the moment he entered the pagoda, he discovered that there were no seals on the space inside. Teleportation, spatial penetration, and so on could be used freely. He could use all sorts of laws of profound mysteries to his heart's content. You go first. Make your move. The white-bearded old man stood there, and he spoke in a carefree manner. All right. Dongbo Shuang didn't decline, and he instantly charged forward. Shua. His extreme piercing instantly pierced through space, and he charged towards the white-bearded old man. Freeze. The white-bearded old man was still as carefree as before. He merely spat out a single word and the space around him froze. Dongbo Shuang, who was originally using his extreme piercing, was also forced out. Space deity heart? Dongbo Shuang's expression changed slightly, but his movements didn't change. He directly stabbed out with his spear. Boom. The terrifying strength of the time immemorial body allowed a casual extreme piercing strike to possess a might that could cause one's heart to tremble. The white-bearded old man frowned. Clang. Clang. The 2 long swords on his back were instantly unsheathed, and he held one in each hand. With lightning speed, 2 dazzling sword lights clashed against Dongbo Shuang's spear. Dongbo Shuang only felt that the 2 swords were clashing against his spear from the side. In just an instant, the spear's body was guided to the side, and the long swords followed the spear's body and pierced towards him. Too fast. Even his instant movement and extreme piercing were too slow to dodge. Dongbo Shuang immediately transformed into his doppelganger, and he immediately teleported 100 meters away. Rip. The white-bearded old man's 2 swords flashed with sword lights. For a moment, streaks of sword lights intertwined with each other, crisscrossing within 100 meters of Dongbo Shuang. No matter how many doppelgangers Dongbo Shuang used, he couldn't escape from the crisscrossing sword lights. Moreover, the sword lights were fused with space and they were unpredictable. They would appear here and there, and it was hard to predict where they would appear. Dongbo Shuang's only powerful secret technique, Star Meteor Annihilation, was an offensive killing technique. It didn't have any powerful defensive techniques. He could only take it head-on. Peng peng peng. Dongbo Shuang's body was instantly attacked by the sword lights. Some of the sword lights even pierced through space, ignoring the godly armor he was wearing, and pierced into his body. However, those terrifying and sharp sword lights pierced into his body, causing his blood, bones, and organs to tremble slightly. Every particle in his body was incomparably tough, and they easily dissipated the impact. This terrifying sword light, which was close to the power of Star Meteor Annihilation, was easily blocked by Dongbo Shuang's body. Dongbo Shuang himself was slightly stunned. This body of mine, isn't it a little too strong? Dongbo Shuang finally understood why the time immemorial body's strength, speed, and other aspects were only supplementary. The most powerful aspect was its ability to protect his life. It was one thing for the sword lights to be unable to pierce through his skin, but it didn't even cause any damage to his internal organs. No matter how strong your body is, you won't be able to defeat me. You still won't be able to pass the first level. The white-bearded old man wielded his sword with both hands as he stood not far away. Dongbo Shuiying looked at the white-bearded old man in front of him. He had to admit that his secret technique, Star Meteor Annihilation, was considered strong. His other techniques were too simple. Even if he combined them, he was still completely suppressed by the white-bearded old man. The white-bearded old man had grasped at least 2 Grade 2 deity hearts, and he had fused them extremely well. This is only the first level and his realm is already higher than mine? Dongbo Shuiying thought. Chapter 356. In the spacious space on the first floor of the Soaring Cloud Pagoda, Dongbo Shuiying realized that the old man in front of him had a higher cultivation than him. However, a battle isn't just about one's cultivation. Senior, be careful. Don't blame this junior for bullying you. Dongbo Shuiying warned. Clearly, he had decided on a new direction after the first exchange. Bring it on. The white-bearded old man's lips curled into a smile. Boom. Dongbo Shuiying charged over in an instant, and his speed instantly reached a terrifying 2,000 li per second. This was the speed he had after cultivating the time immemorial physique. At the same time, the spear in his hand stabbed out like lightning. Pu piu piu. Countless spear shadows enveloped a large area. The white-bearded old man had just used both his swords to counter the spear attack, but he was immediately attacked again. So fast. The white-bearded old man's expression changed. This spear art was too fast, and the might of every spear strike was comparable to a mid-stage high god. Even if it was a mid-stage high god, the white-bearded old man would still be able to counter it. However, he couldn't defend against the countless spear shadows that came at him at the same time. The speed was too fast and the attacks were endless. In a split second, the white-bearded old man was forced to retreat, and the space around him distorted. Dongbo Shuiying felt his vision blurring, and the distance between him and the white-bearded old man changed. You want to defeat me with pure strength and speed? The white-bearded old man's silhouette blurred, appearing on the left and right side of Dongbo Shuiying. His sword light contained terrifying destructive power. Dongbo Shuiying tried to block in a panic, but the sword still pierced through his body. Now! A cold light flashed in Dongbo Shuiying's eyes. Boom! The black spear in his hand swept out, and as it swept out, the spear itself expanded. As a divine weapon, it was natural for it to be able to change its length. When the white-bearded old man attacked, the black spear swept out in an instant. The white-bearded old man didn't have time to escape, and he could only rely on the sword in his hand to block. The black spear smashed into the sword, bending it. The spear continued to smash into the white-bearded old man's body, and he was sent flying while coughing out blood. Dongbo Shuiying didn't show any mercy, and he continued to fight in close combat. The 100-meter-long spear in his hand whistled through the air, ignoring the white-bearded old man's attacks. His time immemorial physique could ignore them, and he could attack as he pleased. At times, he would use extreme piercing to increase his speed. From time to time, it would be the true meaning of Star, unleashing its full strength and sweeping through everything. Stop, stop. The white-bearded old man's expression. Stop, stop, stop. The white-bearded elder shouted. You win. You win. Time the white-bearded old man said, High's heaven stage said, I said, dragon has. Junior barely, of Tian of King of said. Master, Chen said. This junior only relied on his body to barely win. Dongbo Shuiying said. Battles were all about using one's strengths to attack the opponent's weaknesses. Since his cultivation base was weaker, he had to make use of his advantage. The time immemorial physique was so powerful, and its defense was so heaven-defying. Naturally, he could disregard his defense and attack as he pleased. Furthermore, he had to unleash his full strength and speed to bully his opponent. A wooden staircase appeared beside him. Dongbo Shuiying walked up the staircase and arrived at the second floor. This was also a circular space, and there was a white-bearded old man seated cross-legged here. The only difference was that there was a dark green pole placed on his knees. Little fellow, the body I used on the first floor was too weak. The strength I can use on the second floor has increased by quite a bit. The white-bearded old man laughed coldly. Come at me and make your move. This junior shall not decline. Dongbo Shuiying did not hesitate. With a flash, he appeared in midair and slashed down with the spear in his hand. As the spear slashed down, it grew to a length of 100 meters and slashed towards the white-bearded old man. The white-bearded old man held a pole in his hand, and he casually swung it upwards with both hands. The spear slashed downwards while the pole slashed upwards. The two clashed together, and the resulting shockwaves spread throughout the entire second floor of the soaring cloud pagoda. Dongbo Shuiying could feel the rebounding force from the spear, and he could not help but stagger backwards in midair. His expression changed. What power? It's actually not any weaker than mine. No, I'm accumulating my energy and slashing downwards, while he's just casually attacking from the same spot. His strength should be above mine. This body of mine, the white-bearded old man said. It's comparable to the profound gold heavenly gauze body at the entry level. Although its survivability isn't as good as yours, it has an advantage in terms of strength. Most of the honorary disciples of my Crimson Rock Mountain would cultivate world deity-ranked secret techniques. Dongbo Shuiying nodded. He understood. His three true meanings were only at the stage 3 realm, and he had relied on secret skills to reach the entry level. Those who could become honorary disciples usually had grade 2 deity hearts. Thus, it was much easier to cultivate world deity-ranked secret techniques at the entry level. With my current strength, any honorary disciple who cultivated for a few years would have the same strength as me. The white-bearded old man instantly made his move after finishing his sentence. A pole, like a flood dragon in the water, whizzed over with the power of a whirlpool. Dongbo Shuiying hurriedly used his spear to defend. Hua! The rod brought with it a maelstrom force as it clashed with Shuiying's spear. The spear was deflected to the side, and the rod directly stabbed into Shuiying's chest. Although the time immemorial body easily blocked the impact, Dongbo Shuiying was still involuntarily sent flying, and he struggled to stabilize himself. Brat, your cultivation is still too low. The pole swept across the surroundings, and no matter how many hundred meters the Mirage Avatar transformed, it couldn't escape and was directly sent flying. Your strength isn't enough either. The pole clashed with the spear, and the pole smashed onto Dongbo Shuiying's head. Your spear technique only has one secret skill and it only knows how to attack. It's too easy to break through. The pole merely spun and smashed onto Dongbo Shuiying's wrist. Fortunately, the time immemorial body was powerful, and he was still able to hold onto the spear in his hand. Ping ping ping. Dongbo Shuiying was suppressed in all aspects. He couldn't compete in strength or speed. He couldn't compete in techniques either. By relying on his illusory avatar, a single sweep of the pole could cover an area of 100 meters. Dongbo Shuiying crashed into the edge of the circular space and he fell to the ground. He shook his head a few times before regaining consciousness. Do you still want to fight? The white-bearded old man carried his pole as he looked at Dongbo Shuiying. Not anymore, not anymore. Dongbo Shuiying shook his head. Just now, his head had been smashed tens of times by the pole, and he was feeling a little dizzy. Even so, his skin wasn't broken at all, and he didn't even lose a single strand of hair. He could only sigh in admiration at the time immemorial body's heaven-defying defense. Cultivate well. You're only at the threshold of becoming an honorary disciple, and you've only cultivated one more world deity grade secret skill. Otherwise, you wouldn't even be able to win the first floor, the white-bearded old man said. And Dongbo Shuiying nodded. Walking out of the soaring cloud tower, Dongbo Shuiying was actually quite excited. He could fight against a powerful opponent at any time, and he could constantly discover the flaws in his spear technique, allowing him to continuously improve it. The Crimson Dust Island could accelerate time, and he could view the creation of heaven and earth imprints. He could walk the path of reflection, and he could even fight against experts from the soaring cloud tower. It was definitely a holy land for cultivation. I must make full use of my time and not slack off. I must work hard to become an inner disciple before the war breaks out. At that time, my strength will be much higher than it is now. I believe that I will have the strength to fight against the sorcerer god and the great demon god head-on. Dongbo Shuiying was filled with anticipation. While Dongbo Shuiying was bitterly cultivating on the Crimson Dust Island, in the Xia people's world, deep underground, a towering blood-creeping flower was growing here. Its huge green vines, countless thin vines, and countless flowers permeated the surrounding land. These thin vines and flowers even wrapped around the corpses of deity-grade life forms. Boom! An incomparably terrifying fluctuation suddenly spread out from the blood-creeping flower. The blood-creeping flower had begun to transform. Above this underground area, boundless energy was gathering in the sky, and a huge ocean could be vaguely seen in midair. The ocean surged violently. The mortals in the surrounding cities could see the huge image of the ocean when they raised their heads, and they could even hear the sound of the ocean splashing. The fluctuation of the opening of the deity sea could not be concealed. In the entire Xia people's world, every transcendent could clearly sense it. Whether it was the Xia people, the beast clan, or the transcendent natives, everyone knew that a deity had been born. Chapter 358. What is that? All the mortals in the cities looked up in shock. It was too shocking. A huge ocean had appeared in mid-air, its waves surging and majestic. Its might caused countless people's hearts to tremble. As for the size of the ocean, it was at least 10,000 miles wide. It was comparable to the size of a county. Such a huge ocean appearing in the sky was even more eye-catching than the sun. Half of the inhabitants of the main continent of the Xia people's world could clearly see it. The other half could not be seen because of the clouds, tall mountains, and other external obstacles. Why is there such a huge ocean in the sky? The mortals could not understand. Not just them, even the titled knights and titled sorcerers could not understand what this meant. So. In various parts of the Xia people's world, one silhouette after another soared into the sky and stopped in mid-air, looking at the vast ocean that was emitting boundless might. Opening up the deity ocean? All the transcendents were stunned when they saw this. Deity ocean? God's domain? What's going on? Is a deity being born? Who has become a deity? All of the transcendents started to panic. In an ordinary village, Chao Qing, dressed in tattered clothes and disguised as a mortal, raised his head. His expression changed. Another deity has been born. Because he was a native of the Xia people, he received the love and protection of the Xia people's world. That was why he dared to become a deity in Crimson Rock Mountain and secretly returned. In the previous history, as long as a deity was born, the Xia people and the Beast clan would immediately check to see if a deity had appeared on their side. Not appearing? Then it must be the other party. Although they were unwilling, they would immediately retreat to the Transcendence world. Even Palace Lord Chen's Chi clone had left the infernal realm and arrived in the mortal world. He stood in mid-air and watched from afar. Palace Lord Chen, a deity has been born. Is it our Xia people? Palace Lord Chen, is it our Xia people who has become a deity? Palace Lord Chen, is it our Xia people who has become a deity? He asked the Palace Lord Chen for a large amount of information. Everyone was very anxious and wanted to understand the situation. 4 ordinary transcendents, the birth of a deity was almost impossible to resist. However, they did not know that this era was different. In this era, Dongbo Shuiying had the power to easily crush ordinary gods. However, his opponents were the armies of the Sorcerer God and the Great Demon God. That was why he continued to cultivate in Crimson Rock Mountain. Who is it? Palace Lord Chen was also anxious. Palace Lord Chen, don't worry. A message came through. Palace Lord Chen was overjoyed. It was Jing Qiu who had sent the message. He immediately asked, "Do you know who it is? Could it be Snow Eagle?" No, Snow Eagle hasn't reached the 3rd stage realm yet. Mountain Lord He and faction head Si Kong Yang had both condensed a true deity heart. Qiu Qibai had a grade 3 true meaning and had reached the peak of the 3rd stage realm. All of them were relatively close to becoming a deity. Dongbo Shuiying's talent was outstanding. He had a total of 3 grade 2 true meanings. However, his comprehension of the realms wasn't too high. According to Dongbo Shuiying, he hadn't even reached the 3rd stage realm. It's not Snow Eagle. It's a plant life form sent out by Snow Eagle, Jing Qiu transmitted. This plant life form has already become a deity and is still growing. It will be of great use in future battles. Good. Palace Lord Chen was overjoyed. Very quickly, Palace Lord Chen transmitted to the many transcendents of the Xia people. Everyone, don't worry. The one who has become a deity is our Xia people. As for who it is, we will keep it a secret for now. All the transcendents of the Xia people felt their hearts relax. Following that, they became ecstatic. Becoming a deity? In this era, everyone knew that the situation was dire. The Xia people had already begun to secretly migrate. How joyous was it for a deity to be born? While the Xia people were overjoyed, the atmosphere within the transcendent world, the oceanic forest world, had become much more oppressive. Within the oceanic forest world, there was a fortress that was heavily guarded. Its entire body was hemispherical and there were countless runes engraved on it. This was a fortress that could not be moved. In terms of defense, it was even stronger than Dingzhou's battleship. Furthermore, this fortress had been reinforced with arrays, completely isolating it from the outside world. This was also the reason why Dongbu Shuiying was unable to enter the fortress even though he had tried to investigate the Beast clan during the 100 years he had been afflicted with the hexing poison. If he couldn't enter, should he attack it head-on? This fortress was too sturdy. Even if Ding Zhou's battleship attacked it, it would still be useless. Hua hua hua. Within the fortress, there was a huge humanoid figure lying in the middle of a flowing blood-colored lake. His skin was covered with dark red scales and he was breathing slowly. Beside the blood-colored lake, there was a huge illusory head and a golden-robed man. The Xia people have given birth to a deity. The great demon god's head said in a low voice. I know. The golden-robed man's voice was filled with anger. It's all your fault. Back then you were too arrogant and your fleshly body was destroyed. If not for that, the war would have erupted long ago. Who knows, we might have already conquered the entire Xia people's world. Now the Xia people have given birth to a deity. If it were anyone else, it would have been fine. But I'm afraid that it was Dongbu Shuiying. How can you blame me for this? The great demon god's head said unhappily. Back then, the Xia people had given birth to such a peerless transcendent. How could you or I have predicted this? Back then, if Dongbu Shuiying hadn't destroyed my demonic faction headquarters and destroyed the fleshly body I was about to successfully cultivate, how could we have known that he was so strong? How could we have known that he was so powerful? Why would we have set up a trap to attack him? It was precisely because we surrounded him that he was afflicted with the 6 ghosts resentment hexing poison. Even with the hexing poison's influence, his strength has increased by so much. If not for the hexing poison's influence, he would have long since undergone a second primordial bloodline awakening, strengthening his body and nourishing his soul. With his soul growing stronger and without the hexing poison's influence, his strength would likely be much higher than it is now. Even if it had happened 50 years earlier, the situation might not have been any better. The great demon god's head retorted. The golden-robed man did not reply. That's right. This Dongbu Shuiying's improvement was indeed too fast. Even with the hexing poison's influence, he was still able to fight evenly with the lords of Ulan at the Black-White Deity Mountain. You and I have made an oath. There's no need to blame anyone now. The great demon god's head said, what we need to do now is to decide what we should do. We have to get to the bottom of this. Is the one who became a deity Dongbu Shuiying or not? The golden-robed man frowned. He has grasped hold of 3 grade 2 true meanings. If he becomes a deity, the threat he poses will surpass that of ordinary grade 2 deity hearts. If he continues to improve his realm, he might even be able to refine the world core of the Xia people's world. The moment he refines it, a lord of a material world will be born. Nobody will be able to fight against him in the Xia people's world. Even if he becomes a deity, refining the world core will probably take several thousand years, the great demon god's head said. If he can return to the Xia people's world and become a deity, he will most likely become an honorary disciple of the Crimson Rock Mountain and obtain a large amount of treasures. If we start a war, he will be the biggest obstacle, the golden-robed man said. The great demon god's head went silent for a moment before saying, if Dongbu Shuiying becomes a deity, he should have done so secretly within the Crimson Rock Mountain. That way he won't attract our attention and will have sufficient time to continue growing. But now that the Xia people's world has shown signs of opening their deity sea, I feel that it shouldn't be Dongbu Shuiying. I also feel that the possibility of it being Dongbu Shuiying is lower. After all, he is too young. Condensing a grade 2 deity heart isn't that easy. But, no matter how low the possibility is, we can't gamble. After all, from the current intelligence, we know that the transcendents of the Xia people have not become deities. Xikong Yang, Mountain Lord He, and the others have yet to become deities. There should be one transcendent, right? Other than Dongbu Shuiying, who else could it be? The golden-robed man was somewhat vexed. Using the method of elimination. There were only so many demigods in the Xia people, and those who had the ability to become deities could be counted on one's fingers. Once eliminated, the possibility of it being Dongbu Shuiying was actually the highest. Thus, he felt that since he was so young, he shouldn't have reached deity C so quickly. We can't gamble. The golden-robed man said, we have to get to the bottom of this. How do we investigate? The great demon gods had asked. Previously, we've already sent our chi avatars to investigate the ripples, but they didn't find any traces. Clearly, the deity has hidden somewhere else. Through the temporal temple. The golden-robed man said unwillingly. We can only investigate through the temporal temple. We have to get to the bottom of this. Other transcendents becoming deities was a small matter. If Dongbo Shuang became a deity, that would be too terrifying. I'll go ask first and see what the temporal temple's asking price is, the great demon god's head said. Please recommend me. Chapter 359. The material world, the deity world, the dark abyss. They could be found almost everywhere in the temporal temple and the bloodshed tavern. The temporal temple could purchase information, help transport goods, or even ask the temporal temple to send them to a faraway place. As for the bloodshed tavern, it was specially used for bounties and killings. Its asking price was very high and it had its own set of rules. But there was one point. As long as the price was appropriate, the tavern master behind the bloodshed tavern, who was also the magnificent bloodshed god emperor, would personally act. Even powerful existences from the deity world, the bloodshed god emperor was willing to act and kill them. However, the bloodshed tavern's asking price could only be described in one word: black. Their business was spread across countless worlds. The great demon god De Hao was a stage 2 great demon god from the dark abyss. Similarly, within his vast territory, there was a temporal temple. The bloodshed tavern, however, was very numerous. Firstly, the great demon god's territory was large enough, and secondly, the bloodshed tavern's business dealt with almost all living beings. They even did business with mortals from the mortal world. Naturally, their numbers were ridiculous, allowing the demons of the dark abyss to easily find the nearest bloodshed tavern. The temporal temple usually dealt with deities. Comparatively, their numbers were much lower. I've asked, the great demon god's head said. How is it? The golden-robed man asked. Asking about a deity's identity requires 30,000 deity crystals. Asking about Dongbo Shui Ying's strength requires 100,000 deity crystals. The great demon god's head said, Sorcerer god, what do you think? Do you think we should buy these two pieces of information? Dongbo Shui Ying's strength is only 100,000 deity crystals. The golden-robed man frowned. If it was a genius from another mortal world asking for such a price, he would definitely feel that it was too much. Because such a price was already enough to make ordinary world deities feel heartache. However, Dongbo Shuiying was from the Xia people's world. In the upcoming war, Dongbo Shuiying's strength was extremely important, and could even be considered as a decisive factor. Asking for 100,000 deity crystals did not seem to fit the temporal temple's character. The temporal temple was not just ordinarily black-hearted, but they were actually a bit merciful this time? Could it be that the one who became a deity wasn't Dongbo Shuiying? The golden-robed man frowned. This information? The great demon gods had asked. Buy it. I'll buy them all. The golden-robed man said. Great demonic god, it won't be a problem if you pay for this, right? The great demon god felt a bit of pain. Although the great demonic god felt a little heartache, this was a crucial moment before the war. How could he be stingy with these divine crystals? Temple sect sects hall deity god sects abyss was world. I knew it. There must be a reason why the temporal temple asked for such a low price. The great demon god's head growled. The information provided by the temporal temple was about Dongbo Shui Ying's strength at the black-white deity mountain. As for what happened afterwards, the temporal temple said that Dongbo Shui Ying entered the Red Rock Mountain and never came out. His strength cannot be predicted. Then who became a deity? The golden-robed man asked. A plant life form called the blood-creeping flower. The great demon god's head said. Plant life form? Entered the Xia people's world to become a deity? The golden-robed man nodded slightly. This plant life form was probably obtained by Dongbo Shuiying from the Red Rock Mountain. That Dongbo Shuiying has yet to appear. It is unknown whether he is alive or dead. And? The great demon god was also worried. Blood-creeping flower? They did not care. After all, the blood-creeping flower only had a tyrannical body. Its understanding of the laws of profound mysteries was not that high. When the war broke out, a single blood-creeping flower would not be able to stop their army. What is the exact strength of Dongbo Shuiying when he was at the black-white deity mountain? The golden-robed man asked. According to the temporal temple's information, Dongbo Shuiying has grasped hold of 3 grade 2 true meanings: mirage, star, and extreme piercing. Furthermore, he has reached the peak of the stage 2 realm, the great demon god's illusory skull said. He has also grasped hold of a secret skill. It is this secret skill that allowed him to fight evenly with the lords of Ulan. The great demon god's illusory skull continued. Oh. The golden-robed man nodded slightly. He heaved a sigh of relief. Very good. To be able to comprehend a secret skill, this Dongbua Shuiying is the most talented transcendent in the history of the Xia people. He is indeed very powerful, but he is only at the peak of the Stage 2 realm. To increase one's comprehension of the realm, one must take one step at a time. Nothing can be accomplished in a single step. He has only entered the Crimson Rock Mountain for 4 years. He might not even have reached the Stage 3 realm yet, much less become a deity. Yes. The great demon god's illusory skull nodded. Even though there was a time acceleration region within the Crimson Rock Mountain, they were very clear that in order to comprehend the laws of heaven and earth, a time acceleration region would have an effect. Only in a region with a normal time acceleration would one be able to comprehend the laws of heaven and earth clearly and naturally. Just 4 years? How much could he improve? Even though we have spent some deity crystals, it is still a good thing to understand the situation. The golden-robed man revealed a smile. Should we ask the Temporal Temple to investigate the strength of the Xia people? The great demon god skull asked. No. If we want to buy this information, we can only do so at the last moment of the war. The golden-robed man shook his head. Furthermore, I reckon that this information will be extremely expensive. I'm afraid we might not be able to afford it. In a war, if one could know all the trump cards of the other party, then things would be much easier. The Temporal Temple believed that their price would be ridiculously high. Don't be anxious. The fact that Dongbua Shuiying hasn't become a deity is already good news. Based on his cultivation level 4 years ago, he is still very far from becoming a deity. The golden-robed man said, we can take things one step at a time in an orderly fashion. When the time comes, we can crush them with unstoppable strength. The great demon god's illusory skull agreed. Let's follow the plan and do it step by step. Soon. It won't be long before the war begins. The golden-robed man was filled with anticipation. There were very few people who could make them feel fear. The Temple of the Earth God was one of them. Dongbua Shuiying was another. As for the others? Even if the Xia people produced a deity, it would only be a small obstacle for them. Time flowed on. The Xia people continued to migrate in preparation for the upcoming war. In the blink of an eye, 9 years had passed. Crimson Rock Mountain. Woohoo! Persei and the green-haired woman, Shi Wei, flew side by side into the sky, passing through the world membrane and entering the higher dimensional world. They then continued to fly upwards. Passing through the soil, the void and layers of clouds, they finally arrived at Crimson Dust Island. On Crimson Dust Island. Persei. The Maishan master revealed a look of joy. Brother Maishan. Persei smiled as well. Congratulations, congratulations. You've made it here as well. The Maishan master's emotions came from the bottom of his heart. It hadn't been easy for them. Originally, it would have been good if one of the leaders of the 5 teams had been lucky enough to succeed. It would have been incredible if 2 had succeeded. Of course, if the Xia people's local transcendent, Dongbua Shuiying, were included, there would be a total of 3. I also went crazy, which was why I was lucky enough to break through the final bottleneck and grasp the Only Me deity heart, Persei said. Only Me? The Maishan master nodded. Your application of the true meaning of Only Me is superior to mine. After all, to be able to develop 8 arms, your understanding of the true meaning of Only Me is already extremely high. For you to grasp the Only Me deity heart, it's not strange. Persei smiled as well. If he succeeded, he would truly soar to the heavens. Right, where's Dongbua? Persei hurriedly asked. His relationship with Dongbua Shuiying was the best amongst the top few who had entered this time. Oh, I just saw him on the path of reflection, the Maishan master said. I'll bring you there. Shi Wei smiled as well. Soon they arrived at the side of the path of reflection. On the path of reflection, a white-robed Dongbua Shuiying was walking with difficulty. However, he was already very far away and his silhouette had become very small. It was just that each step he took was getting more and more difficult. Dongbua is very powerful. He has already passed the first section and is on the second. The Maishan master sighed in praise. Dongbua Shuiying has cured the hex poison, and he also has the cultivation conditions of the Crimson Rock Mountain, which far surpasses the mortal world. Furthermore, he has the time immemorial body to nourish his soul. His improvement is indeed very fast. Although my power has increased greatly in the past few years, I've still been completely suppressed by him after exchanging blows with him many times. As soon as he finished speaking, far away on the stone path, Dongbua Shuiying collapsed and fell into the lake below. With a bang, he crashed into the lake, causing water to splash everywhere. Only after that did he break out of the water and soar into the sky. As he flew out, he immediately saw Persei, the Meishan master, Shi Wei and the others. Ha ha ha. Dongbua Shuang laughed loudly. Leaving behind an afterimage in midair, he had already arrived where Persei and the others were. Dongbua. Persei smiled brilliantly. Brother Persei, congratulations. Dongbua Shuang was also happy to see his good friend. He knew very well what burden Persei was shouldering. To be able to become a protector disciple, regardless of whether it was for Persei's flying sword manner or Persei himself, all hardships would be over and happiness would begin. Chapter 360. After becoming an honorary disciple, Persei was not in a hurry to leave. After all, even though he and the Meishan master had to bring back a world deity grade secret technique for the world deities, it was fine as long as they returned before the war broke out. Both of them planned to leave before the 20 years were up. Before leaving, they naturally had to properly cultivate on Crimson Dust Island. Crimson Dust Island was a holy land for cultivation. The moment they left the world of the Xia people, they would not be able to return. They had to make full use of every second they had. Persei grasped the only me deity heart and chose a body-related world deity grade secret technique, the Star River Hidden. This was a secret technique that could develop one's body to an unimaginable level. When cultivated to the extreme, one's entire body could transform into a boundless star river. Other than being weaker than the time immemorial scripture, in terms of survivability, it was superior in every other aspect. However, this world deity grade secret technique was extremely difficult to grasp and cultivate. Only the egoistic deity heart, which specialized in body research, could barely grasp it. Of course, regardless of whether it was Persei or the Meishan master, both of them had learned a world deity grade secret technique. They were not a match for Dongbua Shuang. After grasping the deity heart and secret technique, it would be extremely difficult for Persei and the others to improve their strength any further. In fact, they might not even be able to improve in 10,000 years. To grasp the complete deity heart and improve it further, they would need to comprehend the deity heart of other true meanings and fuse them into their own deity heart. This would allow their deity hearts to evolve and improve. Their ultimate goal was to achieve a grade 1 deity heart. But Dongbua Shuang was different. His strength was rapidly increasing, and his 3 true meanings were also improving. After all, he was still some distance away from reaching the deity heart realm. Shot. Within Dongbua Ying's cultivation paradise, within a spacious courtyard, there was a large tree whose leaves had already turned yellow. As the wind blew, the leaves fell to the ground. The white-robed Dongbua Ying's figure traversed the surrounding space, appearing and disappearing from time to time. The long spear in his hand also pierced into the void. Rip. 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 Black cracks suddenly appeared in the surrounding void, and the black cracks extended into the distance. I finally mastered it. Dongbua Shuang walked out from the void, his eyes filled with joy. After cultivating on Crimson Dust Island for 11 years, the last 2 moves of my spear art have finally been perfected. My strength has already increased to the point where there's no room for improvement. Dongbua Ying's eyes were filled with a trace of disappointment. 11 years. You've improved much more than I expected. 11 years. There was no voodoo poison interference. The time immemorial body nourished the soul, making it even stronger. The cultivation conditions on Crimson Dust Island were even more shocking. In one go, Dongbua Shuang raised his 3 true meanings from the initial stage to the peak stage 3rd stage, and there was almost no way for him to advance any further. If he wanted to improve further, he would have to reach the deity heart realm. Shenexen? Dongbua Shuang frowned as well. The 3 true meanings had all reached the peak of the 3rd stage realm, but he did not have the slightest premonition of grasping the deity heart in any of them. Clearly, it was very difficult to take this step. For example, the Meishan master and Persei had reached the peak of the 3rd stage realm for many years. They had gone through many years of tempering and accumulation, and under the pressure of the Crimson Rock Mountain, they had barely broken through. In reality, in the deity world, there were many who could not take this step. As for which true deity heart he would condense in the future when all 3 true meanings reached the deity heart realm, Dongbua Shuang had not thought of it yet. However, there was no need to think too much about it now. Reaching the deity heart realm was the most important thing. My spear art has reached the large success stage. My true meaning has also reached the peak. Dongbua Ying's eyes shone. I hope I can pass through the 6th level this time. The 6th level of the Soaring Cloud Pagoda had already trapped him for more than 3 years. Now he had mastered the last 2 moves of his spear art. His strength had increased by a lot, but this was also his last gamble. If he failed again, he would not be able to raise his strength in a short period of time. From the outside, the cultivation paradise of the honorary disciples looked like an ordinary courtyard. However, the moment one walked in, the space would suddenly expand. Dongbo Shuiying walked out of the cultivation paradise and arrived at the path of reflection. He continued walking up the stone steps of the path of reflection, step by step. To cultivate one's heart, one had to constantly clean it. If one did not advance, one would fall behind. Dongbo Shuiying would walk the path of reflection at least 10 times a day. Hong hong hong, exhaustion filled his entire soul. Yet, his soul was faintly glowing. He walked step by step. Walking past the first step, then the second. The exhaustion grew stronger and stronger, almost drowning his entire soul. As Dongbo Shuiying walked forward step by step, he finally fell off the stone steps and fell into a deep slumber. He fell into the lake below, splashing water everywhere. Lying on the lake, Dongbo Shuiying smiled. He got up and continued walking for the second time. Again and again, 10 times. Dongbo Shuiying calmly walked towards the Soaring Cloud Pagoda, raising his head to look at the 9 floors of the pagoda. On the 6th floor of the 9 floors of the pagoda, Dongbo Shuiying walked up the wooden stairs. The 6th floor of the pagoda was a circular and spacious space. A white-bearded old man sat cross-legged in this space. A thin black sword rested on the old man's knees. The thin sword had no sheath, and it didn't exude any aura. It's been 2 months. Have you improved? The white-bearded old man grinned. Brat, if you haven't improved, then don't waste your time. Senior, this junior wishes to try again. Dongbo Shuiying said. All right. The white-bearded old man stood up. All of a sudden, with the white-bearded old man as the center, ripples spread out in all directions. These ripples enveloped every corner of the pagoda. Regardless if it was reality, shadows, or the mirage, everything was permeated by the ripples. Even the particles in the pagoda could be seen clearly. Furthermore, these ripples contained the power of vibration. Even experts at the level of the Lords of Ulan would be disintegrated if they were to stand near the white-bearded old man. This was a terrifying secret technique used by the white-bearded old man. Within the range of the ripples, ordinary newly ascended deities would be easily killed by it. Dongbo Shuiying stood there, completely unfazed by it. His time immemorial body was able to withstand it easily. He grinned and said, Senior, be careful. Make your move. The white-bearded old man was extremely arrogant. Wah! Dongbo Shuiying suddenly disappeared into thin air. He's hiding? The white-bearded old man grinned. Countless ripples swept out in all directions, but gradually, his expression changed. How is this possible? All of a sudden, the ripples in every corner of the pagoda became even finer, to the point that it was hard for the naked eye to see them clearly. The white-bearded old man carefully examined the area, using all of his investigative techniques. He disappeared. The white-bearded old man was somewhat shocked. He couldn't help but ask, Brat, you've grasped the Mirage Deity Heart? From the way he saw it, grasping the Mirage Deity Heart would make one a part of the Mirage. One's ability to conceal oneself would be even more terrifying than when one was at the Stage 3 realm. In fact, one wouldn't even need to make a move himself. A Mirage true body would be able to match the strength of one's true body. This was also the reason why experts with the Mirage Deity Heart were known as the most terrifying assassins. You should have just reached the peak of the Stage 3 realm not too long ago, right? You didn't need to accumulate any strength, and yet you managed to reach the Deity Heart realm? The white-bearded old man didn't dare to believe it. Junior isn't that powerful. Junior's true meaning of Mirage has just reached the peak of the Stage 3 realm not too long ago. I don't even have the slightest clue about reaching the Deity Heart realm. It's just that I've just perfected this true meaning of Mirage, which is why I'm able to reach this step. Dongbo Shuiying's voice resounded in the surrounding void. At this moment, Dongbo Shuiying's confidence grew. This old man couldn't discover him, so his chances of winning had increased by at least 30%. Chapter 361. A secret skill of the true meaning of Mirage? The white-bearded old man smirked as he scanned his surroundings. It seems like you really have something to rely on this time. Bring it on. You won't be able to defeat me if you keep hiding. Wah wah wah, countless ripples spread out with the white-bearded old man at the center. The ripples were powerful enough to shatter the mirage doppelganger and other illusory techniques. One had to know that even a newly ascended deity would be shattered by the ripples, let alone Dongbo Shuiying, who was only at the peak of the stage 3 realm, the mirage doppelganger. The strength of the mirage doppelganger could barely suppress an era. There was still a gap between it and a newly ascended deity. The white-bearded old man held onto his black, thin sword as he calmly waited for Dongbo Shuiying to make his move. At this moment, Dongbo Shuiying was hiding in the mirage. He was the mirage. If he didn't make a move, no one would be able to detect his presence. Only when he made a move would he be exposed. It's here. The white-bearded old man's eyes lit up. Following that, he revealed a look of surprise. Boom, boom. In the void in front of and behind the white-bearded old man, a black spear pierced out. Each of the spears contained the image of a star expanding, collapsing, and perishing. Its might caused one's heart to tremble. The two spears pierced out from two different directions. How is this possible? One of the spears must be fake. Why didn't it shatter under my domain-type secret skill? The white-bearded old man was shocked. This meant that the fake spear could at least withstand the might of his domain-type secret skill. No matter how shocked he was, the white-bearded old man immediately made his move. The black, thin sword in his hand abruptly slashed, and the black, thin sword disappeared into thin air. This black, thin sword turned into an inconspicuous ripple that instantly swept out in two directions. Dang. One spear was blocked, but the other spear began to shatter under the black, thin sword's ripple. The surroundings quietened down. Dongbo Shuiying had already kept his spear and continued to hide in the mirage. At this moment, he had disappeared without a trace, and it was difficult to detect his presence. It actually has 30% of its power? The white-bearded old man looked around and exclaimed, "Your current true meaning of mirage is only at the peak of the stage 3 realm. I didn't expect that a clone would actually have 30% of your true strength. This is nothing. Once you grasp the mirage deity heart, your mirage avatar will have the same strength as your main body." Dongbo Shuiying's voice reverberated in the vast space. Senior swordsmanship secret skill is indeed powerful. My star meteor annihilation is already very fast, and it's hard to tell which one is real and which one is fake. However, Senior is able to block both of my spears at the same time. Dongbo Shuiying stayed on Crimson Dust Island for 11 years. Most of the time he had to practice his spear and comprehend the true meaning. A small portion of the time was spent on researching spear arts and secret techniques. Under the time acceleration of 100 times, he had actually spent more than 200 years researching and finally created this complete set of spear technique secret skill. One of them was an auxiliary secret skill, true condensation. The real was also the illusory, and the illusory was also real. The real is also the illusory, was to form the illusory body, which was the stage 3 realm of the true meaning of mirage. The illusory is also the real, was to allow a mirage avatar to completely mirror the main body, condensing an identical body with the same strength. This body was called the mirage true body. This was the mirage deity heart realm. During a battle, the main body would be hidden, and it would be hard for the enemy to find traces of it. The one to attack was the mirage true body, which was extremely powerful. Dongbo Shuiying's current realm was quite high. Furthermore, he had seen the imprints left behind by the various seniors on Crimson Dust Island. He had been constantly pondering and trying his best to condense the mirage avatar into a true body. Until now, this secret skill, true condensation, could be considered to have reached the pinnacle. His main body could condense and become one with the scenery within the mirage, and he could also use 30% of the main body's strength. "Senior, try this move again." Dongbo Shuiying's voice resounded in the vast space. Hoo. Two black spears pierced out from the same direction. This time, the spear tips faintly revealed the scene of the extreme rolling piercing point. That extreme point was like the beginning and the end of everything. The two spears were extremely fast. The moment they pierced out, they pierced through the void and disappeared from sight. The white-bearded old man had a smile on his face as he once again waved the black thin sword in his hand. The black thin sword also disappeared into nothingness. The two spears and the thin sword were shuttling back and forth in another layer, clashing continuously. One of the spears would occasionally dissipate and condense again. When it condensed again, it would suddenly turn into a real spear. As for the other spear, it was fake. It was hard to distinguish between the real and the fake. Pew, the two spears were extremely fast. On a deeper layer of energy they crazily attacked. The black thin sword could only defend with difficulty. A spear instantly pierced through the defense, piercing into the white-bearded old man's chest. The spear tip then emerged from his back. At this moment, the entire spear finally appeared in the real world. So fast. The white-bearded old man stared at Dongbo Shuiying in shock. Your sword is even faster. It's a pity that you only have one sword while I have two spears. The white-robed Dongbo Shuiying walked out of the mirage. He kept his spear as well, that's why I won by luck. There's no such thing as luck in victory. The white-bearded old man's chest injury recovered. He shook his head. On the 5th floor you were able to use clumsiness to defeat me. On the 6th floor you actually used speed against speed, combining speed and illusion to defeat me. I accept my loss wholeheartedly. Dongbo Shuiying, your 3 true meanings have yet to reach the deity heart stage, yet you were able to reach the threshold of becoming an inner disciple. Truly, truly admirable. When I was a transcendent, I was far inferior to you. Senior is overpraising me. Dongbo Shuiying hurriedly said. Alright, you can leave now. You've won. You've won the 6th floor. You're now an inner disciple. The white-bearded old man said. He truly admired Dongbo Shuiying. Secret skills weren't that easy to create. But Dongbo Shuiying had created an entire set of secret spear techniques. Moreover, when he created them, it was clear that he had considered coordination. When the spear techniques were coordinated, their power would explosively increase. Within an elegant pavilion on Crimson Dust Island, a man dressed in luxurious robes, crimson rock, walked out of the pavilion. His face was filled with joy. He actually became an inner disciple so quickly? At the peak of the towering sky-reaching vine that pierced through 2 levels, a green-haired girl, Shiwei, appeared. She looked towards the distant Crimson Dust Island, her eyes filled with disbelief. Dongbo Shuiying has become an inner disciple? The upper world of Crimson Rock Mountain was incomparably vast, spanning a distance of 1 billion kilometers. Countless life forms flourished here, and this place was divided into countless countries and sections. The majority of them didn't know that this was just a world within the Eden Treasure Crimson Rock Mountain. There were countless deity worlds and dark abyss outside. Within this world, the 2 world deities naturally had the highest status. Hidden within an ordinary manner, a thick-robed youth was currently researching a complicated deity seal. The deity seal was floating and countless golden deity runes were changing. The thick-robed youth suddenly stretched out his hand and grabbed the floating deity seal. He then raised his head and looked towards the direction of Crimson Dust Island. What? That kid has already become an inner disciple? How many years has it been? Within another Sword Dao sect. The Scarlet Cloaked Youth was the elder of this Sword Dao sect. Occasionally he would teach a few disciples. This Sword Dao sect ranged from transcendents who had just entered the sect to deity experts like the sect master. Not a single one of them knew that this Scarlet Cloaked Youth was an incomparably powerful world deity. Master, I still have to train like this. How long will I have to train for? A chubby youth shouted. He was holding a sword and attacking a large tree in front of him. The tree's injuries were constantly recovering. Continue training. If not, then scram. The scarlet-cloaked youth sat in the distance, eating and drinking to his heart's content as he casually spoke. The chubby youth felt helpless. Why did he have to take this person as his master? No wonder his master had the fewest disciples in the sect. Amen? The scarlet-cloaked youth raised his head abruptly. A sharp glint flickered in his eyes. That little fellow has already, south? In the blink of an eye, he disappeared without a trace. Master, don't go. The chubby youth shouted. Helpless, he could only continue training with his sword. His master did not allow him to stop, so he did not dare to. So. 4 figures appeared one after another at the foot of the soaring cloud pagoda, staring at the exit. When the white-robed Dongbo Shuiying walked out, he could not help but jump in fright. Why did these 4 fellows suddenly appear at the entrance of the pagoda? He knew Senior Shiwei and Senior Crimson Rock, but who were the other 2? The thick-robed youth's aura was restrained, but it was like a bottomless pit. The other scarlet-cloaked youth, on the other hand, had a sharpness that made one's heart palpitate. A faint aura from him caused Dongbo Shuiying's heart to tremble. These 2 were terrifying existences. Most likely they could kill him with a single breath. Junior apprentice brother. The thick-robed youth grinned. We have one more junior apprentice brother now. The scarlet-cloaked youth also revealed a rare smile. Dongbo Shuang was stunned. Crimson Rock, who was beside him, laughed and said, Dongbo Shuang, these two are also inner disciples of my Crimson Rock Mountain. When the sacred master died, the two of them were unlucky enough to be cultivating in Crimson Rock Mountain. Since they are both world deities under the laws of the material plane, they are unable to leave Crimson Rock Mountain. They can only stay here forever. Star. Chapter 362. Dongbo Shuang sighed inwardly. These two world deity senior apprentice brothers were truly pitiful. Not even deities from the outside could forcefully enter the material realm, much less world deities. Instead, we should thank Master. The thick-robed youth said, back then even Master died in that battle. How dangerous was the situation? In order to prevent his treasure from falling into the hands of the enemy, or to prevent us from falling into the hands of the enemy, Master forcefully threw Crimson Rock Mountain into the material realm, allowing us to survive. The scarlet-cloaked youth nodded, otherwise we would have been killed long ago. Even powerful existences had fallen. If the disciples of powerful existences were to fall into the hands of the enemy, they would most likely die as well. The material realm, although it rejected deities and even stronger existences. Crimson Rock Mountain was an Eden treasure, capable of isolating the entire material realm from probing. The material realm only treated it as an object. As long as one could break through the layers of membranes, they would not be rejected by the laws of the material realm. Of course, forcibly breaking through the layers of membranes was not an easy task. I am goodbye. The thick-robed youth looked towards Dongbo Shuang. Amongst the inner disciples under Master, I am ranked second. I am He Fei Yun, ranked 7th amongst the inner disciples, the scarlet-cloaked youth said. The nearby Shiwei looked towards Dongbo Shuang. Dongbo Brat, you are ranked 37th. Dongbo Shuang immediately said, greetings, senior goodbye, senior Fei Yun. Little junior brother. The thick-robed youth goodbye sighed. Although Master accepted many disciples, the deity world is still a dangerous place. Over the years many have died. Some have lived for too long, but their cultivation of the heart was insufficient, resulting in self-doubt. Eventually, their true deity hearts crumbled and their bodies were destroyed. Including you, there are only 12 inner disciples who are still alive. Dongbo Shuang already knew how cruel the deity world was. Even a powerful existence like Sacred Master Crimson Dust had died, let alone world deities. If it wasn't cruel enough, why would the Universe God spend so much effort just for a Universe God level secret skill? Senior apprentice brother goodbye, did you say that because you lived too long you started to doubt yourself, and your true deity heart collapsed? Dongbo Shuang was surprised. Lived too long? Would he die? Have you lived for 100 million years? The thick-robed youth, goodbye, looked at Dongbo Shuang. What about 1 billion years? 10 billion years? Dongbo Shuang was taken aback. Without sufficient inner state, even if you have a long lifespan, you won't be able to bear it. As you live longer and longer, some will become more and more silent, while others will become more and more deranged. It's common for one's true deity heart to have a breakdown. It's normal for one to feel too tired and self-destruct. The thick-robed youth continued, there are also some world deities who temporarily seal their memories, giving up all their strength to reincarnate and start a new life. This way, even if they awaken in the future, their old soul will still be nourished, and they might be able to live for a period of time. However, if one reincarnates and seals their memories without any strength, it's very possible for their soul to dissipate even when they're still weak. That's still a true death. Dongbo Shuang sighed inwardly. So there were so many things that could happen after living for so long. Self-destruction? Madness? Reincarnation? However, 1 billion years, 10 billion years, was indeed a long time. He didn't dare to imagine what it would be like to live for so long. The history of the Xia people's world was only tens of millions of years old. Senior apprentice brother. The scarlet-cloaked youth beside him said, becoming an inner disciple will also bring you many benefits. Dongbo Shuang revealed a smile. The reason he worked so hard to become an inner disciple was for the sake of these benefits. For the sake of the Xia people, he would have more confidence in the war. Of course, the huge increase in his strength had already increased the chances of his side winning the war. Do you know one thing? The scarlet-cloaked youth revealed a smile. Inner disciples are allowed to bring a family member into Crimson Rock Mountain. Bring a family member? Dongbo Shuang couldn't help but be pleasantly surprised as he looked towards Crimson Rock. The artifact spirit, Senior Crimson Rock, nodded. Right. Honorary disciples are the most common, and they aren't allowed to bring anyone in. Inner disciples are highly valued by the Sacred Master, and are allowed to bring a family member with them. They can even cultivate on Crimson Dust Island. However, World Deity Great Secret Techniques and the like cannot be obtained unless you make a sacrifice and choose to pass on the World Deity Great Secret Technique to your family member. As for personal disciples, you can bring as many as you want. Of course, you can only bring a maximum of 3 to cultivate on Crimson Dust Island at the same time. This is also to prevent Crimson Dust Island from becoming too noisy. After all, the Sacred Master often stayed here in the past. Dongbu Shuang nodded. Personal disciples were indeed different. They could bring a group of people into the lower realm first. As for Crimson Dust Island, they could only bring 3 at the same time. That meant they could take turns. Senior Crimson Rock, I wish to bring my wife in, Eastern European Snow Eagle said. A small matter. Let her enter the void region surrounding Crimson Rock Mountain. That is the range of my power, Crimson Rock said. I can directly teleport her in. Good. Dongbu Shuang revealed a happy expression. As for the benefits of being an inner disciple, let me tell you. Crimson Rock continued. Dongbu Shuang listened, but his heart was already boiling. It had been a long time since he had seen his wife. Although in reality only 15 years had passed. Adding in the time acceleration, it had already been more than 200 years. It had truly been too long. Infernal world. Nowadays, the transcendence of the Xia people all resided in the Xia capital, and the city was unprecedentedly lively. There used to be a large number of attendants and servants here, but now there were very few of them. Transcendents, legend knights, and mages all lived here as well as their families and relatives. There were also many other talents and so on. Transcendents and below did not have the qualifications to have attendants and servants. Even if they had attendants and servants, they would only have 1 or 2. Only Transcendents could have 8 or 10 servants. The population of the Xia capital had reached 50 million. Of course, most of them had entered this Scarlet Cloud Mountain world, and other spaces within the Infernal Palace. Nowadays, many spaces had been completely developed for people to live in. Apart from the Xia capital, there were also countless people living in other regions of the Infernal world. In a courtyard within the Infernal Palace, Jianghu was wearing a light blue robe and was currently researching a spell. The aura emitted from her body was becoming more and more extraordinary. After receiving a large amount of precious spirit fruits and spirit liquids from Dongbu Shuang, coupled with her own high innate talent, she actually broke through to the demigod realm in one go. Yuan Qing had also received a few spirit fruits and treasures from the Xia people and had also become a demigod. In terms of innate talent, Jianghu might not be as good as Dongbu Shuang, but in reality she was not inferior to Yuan Qing or Qi Qiu Bai. Because she was a mage, mages would be slower at the beginning, but they would start to exert themselves later on. Mountain Lord He and Elder Aolan of the beast race were both mages. From this, it could be seen that mages would become more and more powerful in the later stages of their cultivation. Okay, I know. Jianghu was very excited. I'm coming. What? A vast amount of magic power surged out from Jianghu's body. The magic power of a demigod quickly formed another Jianghu beside her, leaving behind a dermic avatar. Jianghu's main body immediately turned into a streak of light and left. He tore open a spatial passageway and arrived at a depth of 100,000 kilometers underground. There were vines vaguely appearing in the surroundings. It was the blood-creeping flower. Currently, the blood-creeping flower was close to the Crimson Rock Mountain. After Jianghu appeared, she flew directly towards the dark void surrounding Crimson Rock Mountain. The dark void seemed very small. As Jianghu flew over, her body rapidly shrank. In contrast, the dark void seemed to have become much larger. Buzz. A wave of energy emanated from Crimson Rock Mountain and enveloped Jianghu. Then Jianghu disappeared into thin air. On Crimson Dust Island, next to a short tree, red leaves were falling. Dongbu Shuang was currently standing there, seemingly waiting calmly. However, a trace of anxiety could be seen in his eyes. Buzz. The space in front of him slightly distorted, and a figure appeared. It was a beautiful woman wearing a light blue robe. She was known as the #1 beauty of the Xia people, Jianghu. After becoming a demigod, her aura had become even more ethereal. Snow Eagle. Jianghu's eyes were filled with tears as she immediately flew over. Jianghu. Dongbo Shuang also stretched out his arms and hugged his wife. Chapter 363. Jing Qiu could sense the changes in her husband. Ever since he was poisoned by the six ghosts' resentment, Dongbo Shuiying's body had been in poor shape. He would occasionally break out in cold sweat and his body would tremble slightly. But at this moment, when she was hugging her husband, she could feel a vigorous and powerful force contained within Shuiying's body. This force made her feel somewhat startled. This was the time immemorial body. Even though he was trying to hide it as a demigod mage, Jing Qiu could still sense that her husband had been reborn. The two separated. Snow Eagle, are you completely recovered? Jing Qiu could not hide her excitement. I couldn't be better. Dongbo Shuang chuckled. I'm so well that I can have babies. You're smiling the moment we meet. You're really? Jing Qiu felt helpless. She looked around. This is your residence in Crimson Rock Mountain? I just changed it. Dongbo Shuang laughed. Before I was just an honorary disciple. In the past 11 years I, your man, passed the path of reflection and the soaring cloud pagoda, and finally became an inner disciple. This is the cultivation paradise of an inner disciple. As for you as my wife, you can also live with me. Come, I'll bring you to the meditation room. Dongbo Shuang brought his wife to tour his cultivation paradise. Jing Qiu looked around the entire cultivation paradise. After learning that a meditation room cost 50 million deity crystals, and experiencing the time acceleration, she was shocked. 50 million deity crystals? Just a meditation room? Our Xia people only have so little. Jing Qiu was a little dazed. This was built by Holy Master Crimson Dust. Holy Master Crimson Dust is a powerhouse of the God world. What's so special about this? Dongbo Shuang said. It said that the cultivation conditions of a personal disciple are much better than mine. Actually, as an inner disciple, I already have the qualifications to listen to Holy Master Crimson Dust's guidance. Unfortunately, Holy Master Crimson Dust is dead. I can only bury my head in cultivation. Alright. Since you live with me, you can also use the meditation room in this cultivation paradise. There's also the Ascending Cloud Tower, Heartseeker Path, Inheritance Imprint Valley, and so on. You can take a look at all of them, Dongbo Shuang said. Really? I'm not a disciple of Crimson Rock Mountain. Jing Qiu couldn't believe it. Look, Crimson Dust Island hasn't suffered any losses. Dongbo Shuang curled his lips. There are some precious treasures, world deity grade secret techniques and inheritances, but you won't be able to obtain a single one of them. That's rare and expensive. This is already very good. The cultivation conditions here are much better than those of the Xia people. Jing Qiu was very satisfied. Dongbo Shuang smiled and said, Let's go, I'll show you around Crimson Dust Island. On the same day, Dongbo Shuang brought his wife around Crimson Dust Island. Jing Qiu also began her days of cultivation on Crimson Dust Island. Her avatar had always been in the infernal world, and as long as it came to Crimson Rock Mountain once a year to replenish some of its energy, it would be able to sustain itself. Now that the hexing poison was no longer bothering them, the husband and wife decided to have a child. However, the higher one's strength was, the harder it was to have a child. This was especially true after cultivating the time immemorial body, which made it even harder to leave behind a bloodline. After all, with such a bloodline, even if the child was not as strong as the father, he would still be extremely powerful. After all, he would far surpass any primordial life form or demon descendant in the history of the Xia people. Within a small courtyard on Crimson Dust Island, the two world deities, Gu Bai and He Fei Yun, as well as Shi Wei and Crimson Rock, were gathered here. Dongbo Shuang was present as well. You've been promoted from honorary disciple to inner disciple. Thus, you can only choose a world deity grade secret technique. You can also choose any treasure on this list. Senior Crimson Rock said, Of course, you can also get a set of world deity weapons. These weapons can be specially refined into blood-refined deity weapons for you. If this blood-refined deity weapon is nurtured well, it can be nurtured all the way to the top-grade world deity grade. Dongbo, this blood-refined deity weapon alone is worth 5 million deity crystals. This is also the most precious gift an inner disciple can receive. Dongbo Shuang nodded. World deity grade secret technique? Crimson Rock Mountain would not suffer any losses. As for the treasures on the list, the price would not be too high. The number of deity crystals one could choose from was only 1 million. That was 10 times that of honorary disciples. The only exception was weapons. A set of world deity weapons would not be too valuable, as they were all low-grade world deity grade weapons. It was estimated that they would only cost a few 100,000 deity crystals. Only the blood-refined deity weapon, which could be nurtured to the top-grade world deity grade, would cost 5 million deity crystals. Many ordinary world deities would not be able to take out such a sum. Only world deities who had gone through many hardships and accumulated wealth could take out so many deity crystals to obtain a precious blood-refined deity weapon for themselves. The blood-refined deity weapon had a huge advantage. It was easy to control, and its power was greater than other weapons of the same level. You are still a demigod transcendent. Crimson Rock said, the blood-refined deity weapon that my Crimson Rock Mountain will refine for you should have the power of a top-grade deity grade weapon upon completion. That way you can barely use it. If it were a low-grade world deity grade weapon upon completion, you would not be able to use it. Its power is comparable to the Sorcerer God Saber you mentioned before, and the blood-refined deity weapon of your Xia people, Senior Snow. However, the difference is that this weapon of yours is already at this level from the start, and it can be cultivated to an extremely high level. Dongbo Shuang nodded. What requirements do you have for this blood-refined deity weapon? Crimson Rock asked. A spear. Dongbo Shuang did not hesitate. An ordinary spear. The spear shaft and spearhead should be the same size as the Stellar Fire Cloud spear. The size of the Stellar Fire Cloud spear was very convenient for him to use. His current low-grade deity spear could be controlled to slightly lengthen its length. A deity weapon could be long or short, big or small. However, if he didn't need to change his deity energy, it was naturally better not to change it. All right. Crimson Rock nodded. Can I exchange that set of world deity weapons for deity crystals? Dongbo Shuang asked. World deity weapons? He had no use for them at all. Sure. Crimson Rock nodded. You can exchange it for 500,000 deity crystals. He was willing to help out with such a small matter. Senior goodbye, Senior Feiyun. Dongbo Shuang giggled. Senior Crimson Rock, Senior Shiwei, I can choose any world deity grade secret technique for 500,000 deity crystals. I can also choose any treasure on the list. Everyone please help me. What should I choose that will allow me to defeat the Sorcerer God and the Great Demon God? Dongbo Shuang said hurriedly. The four people present began to ponder. The Sorcerer God is a lord of a material world. He can obtain all sorts of war weapons from the deity world without end. Until the war breaks out, it is impossible to predict what he will do. The thick-robed youth, goodbye, frowned. It will be very difficult to devise a strategy to win. Second senior apprentice brother. The scarlet-cloaked youth beside him shook his head. This isn't the study of magic. There is no strategy to win a war. It is enough as long as the chances of victory are as high as possible. Right? Dongbo Shuang nodded from the side. The war strategy would depend on these four seniors. At this juncture, Dongbo Shuang would not play the hero and make a rash decision. Your strength is the foundation. The scarlet-cloaked youth said, in the mortal world, deities cannot enter. Your own strength will display a miraculous effect, and you will soon obtain a top-grade deity-ranked blood-refined deity spear. Its attack power is not bad. However, it is still not strong enough. Still not strong enough? Dongbo Shuang was astonished. The Sorcerer God and the Great Demon God, their deity avatars are at most at the limit of demigods. His time-immemorial body. His secret art. If he could obtain a blood-refined deity weapon, he would probably be able to fight a late-stage deity expert. With such strength, he would be able to bully peak demigods with ease. You're wrong. The thick-robed youth looked at Dongbo Shuang. Think about it carefully. It's like you hiding in the mirage. Others are 10 or 100 times stronger than you, but they can't hit you. What's the use of that? The Sorcerer God and the Great Demon God are at a much higher realm than you. The Sorcerer God was able to become a lord of a material world. His talent must be extremely high. I estimate that he should have a grade 1 deity heart and become a world deity. The thick-robed youth shook his head. A grade 1 deity heart. Dongbo Shuang, even if you raise your 3 true meanings to the deity heart stage, there's still a huge gap between you and a grade 1 deity heart. Do you understand the gap between you and the Sorcerer God? The Great Demon God is at a higher realm than the Sorcerer God. It can be said that even though the two of them are suppressed to the limit of demigods, they can come and go without a trace. However, they come and go without a trace. Against them, many of your moves will not be effective, the thick-robed young man said. Dongbo Shuang fell into deep thought. That's why you have to constantly increase your advantage. The Scarlet Cloaked Youth said, to them, your greatest advantage is your immense strength. Your strength is not suppressed, and you'll even receive the love and care of the entire mortal world. That's why you have to continue increasing your strength. When your strength reaches a certain level, a single strike from you will be able to shatter the real world, the mirage, or any other world. As long as there's even a trace of the shockwave, it's not something a demigod apex demigod like them can contend against. Dongbo Shuang nodded slightly. Moreover, against those weapons of war, as long as your strength is strong enough, you'll be able to defeat them head-on. The Scarlet Cloaked Youth said. But, how do I increase my strength? Dongbo Shuang asked. He seemed to have reached his limit in all aspects. Unless he made another breakthrough in his realm, but this wasn't something he could achieve just because he wanted to. World Deity Grade Secret Techniques. The Scarlet Cloaked Youth said, you've already cultivated the time immemorial body. However, it's not suitable for you to cultivate other body-related secret techniques. Thus, you can only choose World Deity Grade Secret Techniques related to Do Chi and God Energy. Moreover, the stronger the better. Amen? Dongbo Shuang agreed. Your true meaning of star has reached the peak of stage 3. Perhaps there's a World Deity Grade Secret Technique that you might be able to grasp. The Thick-Robed Youth said. What secret technique? Dongbo Shuang was filled with anticipation. The Thick-Robed Youth and the Scarlet Cloaked Youth exchanged glances. Clearly they had thought of the same thing. The Scarlet Cloaked Youth then said, Great Chaotic True Force. That you're tuning in to the Han Li's Wuxia Adventures YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.